The forest did not care that Ara was close to dying. She staggered through the frozen underbrush, her bare feet torn open by sharp stones hidden beneath the snow. Blood marked the ground behind her, leaving a crimson trail for the wolves hunting her through the winter night. Their howls cut through the trees, close, too close. Her chest burned with every breath. Each inhale felt like glass scraping down her throat. Run. Just keep running. But her body was failing. She had gone 3 days without food and 2 nights without sleep. Worse than the hunger, worse than the cold, was the curse moving inside her. It twisted in her chest like something alive, something with teeth, something desperate to break free. The wind screamed through the pines, carrying the hunters' voices with it. Find her. The cursed one can't escape. Kill her before she shifts. Ara's heart slammed against her ribs. They were afraid of what she might become, afraid of what she already was. An abomination, a mistake made of flesh and bone, the Omega who should never have existed. She grabbed the rough bark of an old oak tree, trying to keep herself upright. The world tilted around her. Snowflakes touched her face, soft and cold, almost cruel in their gentleness. Her thin dress, stolen from a clothesline 2 towns away, offered no protection against the mountain frost. Her whole body shook so violently that her teeth chattered. Keep moving. Do not stop. If you stop, you die. But her knees gave out. Ara crashed to the ground, ice and frozen earth biting into her skin. For one brief moment, she simply lay there, her cheek pressed against the snow, watching her breath cloud in the dark. It would be so easy to stay down, to let the cold take her, to let the hunters find her and finish what her own pack had started 3 months ago when they discovered the truth, that she was a broken Omega carrying a curse older than memory. Please, she whispered, though she did not know who she was begging. The forest, the hidden moon, any god willing to listen. Please, I can't. The howls grew louder. Fear shot through her like lightning. Ara forced herself up, nails digging into the frozen soil. Her vision blurred. Darkness danced at the edges of her sight. Still, she moved. 1 step, then another. Then she felt it. A terrible, beautiful stirring beneath her skin. The thing she had spent her entire life trying to bury. The reason her pack had cast her out, branded her forehead with silver, and sent hunters after her to make sure she never reached another territory. The curse was waking. No, she gasped, stumbling forward. No, please, not now. But her body did not obey her. It never had. Heat bloomed in her chest, not like the natural warmth of a normal shift, but something wrong, something ancient. Silver light began tracing through her veins, glowing beneath her skin like rivers of moonlight. The brand burned into her forehead started to pulse. Pain exploded behind her eyes. Ara screamed. The sound tore through the forest, raw and animal, far too powerful for an Omega who was supposed to be weak. Trees trembled. Heavy sheets of snow dropped from the branches, and somewhere behind her, the hunters' howls changed. They had heard her. They knew what was coming. Ara crashed through a wall of thorns, branches slicing her arms and dress, but she barely felt the pain anymore. All she could feel was the curse rising inside her, demanding release. Her wolf clawed at her from within, but it was not like other wolves. It was twisted by something old, furious, and impossible to control. Then she broke through the tree line and stopped. A cliff. Of course, it had to be a cliff. The ground vanished in front of her, dropping into darkness and mist. Far below, water roared over unseen rocks, or maybe it was only the abyss waiting to swallow her whole. Behind her, branches snapped. The hunters had caught up. She could smell them now. Pine, wet fur, and the sharp metallic scent of silver weapons. They had come prepared. They always did. There she is. A male voice, rough and full of authority. The cursed one. Ara turned slowly. 5 wolves stepped out from the trees, their eyes glowing in the dark. They had not shifted yet, but they were ready. At the front stood Garrett, the scarred brute who led them, a silver-tipped spear gripped tightly in his hands. He looked at her with disgust. "End of the line, freak," he snarled. "You've caused enough trouble." Era backed toward the cliff's edge. Loose stones slipped beneath her heels and vanished into the dark below. "I didn't ask for this," she said, her voice shaking. "I didn't choose to be this." Garrett's expression hardened. "You exist," he said coldly. "That is choice enough. Your bloodline should have died out centuries ago." "It's not of the moon or the earth. It's poison." The silver light beneath her skin pulsed brighter. She could feel it now, the curse recognizing danger, preparing to defend itself. To defend her. And if it did, if she lost control here, she'd kill them all, and she'd never come back from it. "Just let me go," Alara pleaded, hating how small her voice sounded. "I'll disappear. You'll never see me again. I swear it." Garrett laughed a cruel, cold sound. "Can't do that. Council's orders. You're too dangerous to live. Some things are better off dead." He raised the spear. Alara's world narrowed to that silver point aimed at her heart. Time slowed. She could see everything, the determination in Garrett's eyes, the fear poorly hidden in the other hunters' faces, the way the snow fell like stars. This was it. This was how she died. Alone, cursed, unwanted. But then, touch her, and you'll beg for death before I grant it. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. It rolled through the forest like thunder, deep and commanding and absolutely furious. Every wolf froze. Even Garrett lowered his spear slightly, eyes darting toward the shadows. Alara's breath caught. She felt him before she saw him, a presence so overwhelming it made her knees weak. Power radiated through the air, thick and suffocating. This wasn't just an alpha. This was something far more dangerous, and he was walking straight toward them. If you're loving this intense opening and want to see where Alara's desperate flight leads her, make sure to subscribe to Clarissa Romance Collections. Hit that notification bell, because this story is about to get even more addictive. Don't miss what happens when the most powerful alpha in the realm steps out of the shadows. The hunters backed up as one. Even Garrett, for all his bravado, looked suddenly uncertain. From the darkness between the trees, he emerged, tall, broad-shouldered, moving with the liquid grace of a predator who'd never known fear. His eyes found Alara's across the distance and God's. Those eyes, they were the color of molten gold, burning with an intensity that made her curse flare in recognition, in warning, in hunger. He looked at her like he'd been searching for her his entire life, and she had absolutely no idea who he was. Chapter 2. He moved like violence wrapped in flesh. Every step was deliberate, controlled, the kind of control that came from holding back something monstrous. The hunters parted for him instinctively, their bodies responding to a hierarchy they couldn't fight even if they wanted to. Alara watched, frozen at the cliff's edge, as he walked through them like they were nothing. Because to him, they probably were. He was dressed in black, simple clothing that did nothing to hide the raw power coiled beneath. Dark hair fell across his forehead, damp with snow. But it was his face that stole her breath. Sharp angles, a jaw that looked carved from stone, and a scar that ran from his left temple down to his cheekbone, a mark of survival, of battles won through sheer brutality. He looked like a king. No, he looked like a king who'd burned his own kingdom to ash and ruled over the ruins. "Alpha Kale," Garrett breathed, and there was genuine fear in his voice now. "We didn't know you were, we weren't informed." "You weren't informed," Kale said slowly, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through Alara's chest, "because I don't answer to you, or your council, or anyone in this God's forsaken territory." He stopped about 10 feet away from Alara, his golden eyes never leaving her face. She felt pinned by that gaze, studied, assessed, seen in a way that made her want to both run and stay perfectly still. "This Omega," Garrett started, trying to regain some authority. "She's cursed, dangerous. The council has ordered." "I don't care what your council ordered." Kale's voice dropped even lower, and something in it made the air itself seem to tremble. "I'm going to ask you once, and only once. Leave. Now. But Alpha, you don't understand what she... Kale's head turned just slightly toward Garrett. The movement was barely perceptible, but the effect was instant. Garrett's words died in his throat. His face went pale. Whatever he saw in Kale's eyes made him take 3 stumbling steps backward. She's mine, Kale said simply. And I protect what's mine. The words hit Alara like a physical blow. Mine? She'd never seen this man before in her life. She would have remembered. Someone like him, someone who radiated this much raw, untamed power you didn't forget. Alpha Kale, please. One of the other hunters tried, voice shaking. The prophecy she's marked with the silver curse. If she shifts, if she loses control, then I'll handle it. Kale's tone left no room for argument. Now leave before I decide that letting you walk away was a mistake. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Garrett looked at Alara one last time, hatred and fear warring in his expression, then jerked his head toward his hunters. Fall back, he ordered, voice tight. This isn't over, cursed one. The council will hear of this. Good, Kale said coldly. Tell them the Alpha King says they can come speak to me directly if they have a problem. I'm sure that conversation will go very well for them. Alpha King. The title hit Alara like ice water. Gods. She'd heard stories, whispered warnings about the king of the Northern Territories. The Alpha who'd united 5 warring packs through blood and fury, who'd killed his own father to take the throne, who couldn't be challenged, couldn't be defeated, couldn't be tamed, and he was standing between her and death. The hunters melted back into the forest, their retreat swift and silent. Within moments, they were gone. Nothing left but the echo of their presence and the memory of how close she'd come to dying. Alara's legs finally gave out. She collapsed to her knees in the snow, shaking so hard her bones ached. The adrenaline was draining away, leaving nothing but exhaustion and pain, and the curse still writhing beneath her skin, confused and angry. She heard him move, just the soft crunch of snow, and then he was crouching in front of her. Up close, he was devastating. She could see the gold flecks in his eyes, the way his jaw clenched like he was fighting something internal. He smelled like winter pine and smoke and something else, something wild and elemental that made her curse sit up and take notice. Look at me, he said quietly. Alara didn't want to. Looking at him felt dangerous. But her eyes lifted anyway, drawn by a command she couldn't resist. His gaze swept over her face, the silver brand on her forehead, the exhaustion carved into every line, the blood on her lips from where she'd bitten through them to keep from screaming. Something flickered in his expression. Anger, maybe. Or recognition. How long have you been running? He asked. 3 days, she whispered. Maybe 4. I lost count. And before that? My whole life. The words came out before she could stop them, raw and honest, and far too revealing. But gods, she was so tired of running, of hiding, of pretending she could outrun something that lived inside her bones. Kale's jaw tightened. What's your name? Alara. She didn't know why she told him. She should have lied, should have kept that piece of herself hidden. But there was something about him, something in the way he looked at her that made lying feel impossible. Alara, he repeated, and the way her name sounded in his voice did something strange to her pulse. Do you know who I am? The Alpha King. Her voice was barely audible. Kale of the Northern Territories. The Fury King. A bitter smile touched his lips. They still call me that? They call you a lot of things. And what do you call me? She met his eyes. A stranger who just saved my life. Something in his expression shifted, softened, almost. Not a stranger, Alara. Not to you. Her breath caught. I don't understand. I know. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his fingers brushed her cheek, just the lightest touch, but it sent electricity racing through her entire body. The curse inside her thrummed, responding to him in a way it never had to anyone else. But you will. How do you know me? The question came out desperate. We've never, haven't we? His thumb traced just below the silver brand on her forehead, careful not to touch the mark itself. Tell me, Alara, have you been dreaming? Her heart stopped. Yes. Gods, yes. For months now, she'd been having dreams, nightmares, where she ran through endless forests, always chasing or being chased by someone she could never quite see, a shadow with golden eyes. A voice that called her name like a prayer and a curse combined. "How did you know?" she whispered. "Because I've been dreaming too." His voice was rough, almost reluctant, like the admission cost him something. Every night for 6 months, a girl with silver fire in her veins, running, always running. And I couldn't reach her, couldn't save her. His eyes locked on hers. Until tonight, this was impossible. Insane. Wolves didn't share dreams. They didn't have psychic connections unless they were. No. She shoved the thought away violently. That couldn't be what this was. Fate wouldn't be that cruel. "I don't believe in destiny," Alara said, but her voice shook. "Neither do I." Kale's hand dropped away, and she immediately felt the loss of his warmth. "But I believe in what I see, what I feel, and right now, I see an Omega who's been hunted to the edge of death because of something she didn't choose, something she can't control." He stood, offering her his hand. "I know that story. I've lived it." She stared at his outstretched hand. Taking it felt like stepping off another kind of cliff, one she might never climb back from. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. "You don't know me. Don't know what I've done. What I might do. Don't I?" He tilted his head slightly, and there was something ancient in his gaze now. Something that made her feel like he was looking through her, into her, down to the cursed core of her being. "I know you're terrified of your own power. I know you'd rather die than hurt someone innocent. I know you've spent your whole life being told you're a monster." His voice dropped to almost a whisper. "And I know you're not." Tears burned at the back of her eyes. When was the last time someone had said something kind to her? When was the last time anyone had looked at her and seen something other than a threat? "You don't know what I am," she said hoarsely. "What's inside me? Then show me." The challenge hung in the air between them. He was asking her to trust him. This stranger, this king, this man who'd appeared out of nowhere and upended everything she thought she knew about her own fate. She should say no, should run, should throw herself off this cliff before she made the mistake of believing someone might actually want to help her. But she was so tired of running. Slowly, hesitantly, Alara reached out and placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, warm and solid, and impossibly gentle for someone called the Fury King. The moment their skin touched, the curse inside her sang. Not in warning, not in hunger, in recognition. Kale's eyes widened slightly. He felt it too. She could see it in the way his breath hitched, the way his grip tightened just a fraction. "Impossible," he murmured. "What?" But he was already pulling her to her feet, his other hand coming up to steady her when she swayed. "Can you walk?" "I think so." "Good. We need to move. Those hunters will report back to their council, and they'll send more, stronger ones. We need to be far from here before that happens." "Where are we going?" Kale looked down at her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. It was possessive, protective, and absolutely unbreakable. "Somewhere safe," he said. "Somewhere no one will touch you again." His voice darkened. "Not while I'm breathing." And despite everything, despite the fear and the exhaustion and the curse still writhing beneath her skin, Alara believed him. Maybe that was her first mistake. Or maybe it was the only smart decision she'd ever made. Chapter 3. They moved through the forest in silence. Kale led the way, his hand still wrapped around hers, warm, steady, anchoring her to reality when everything else felt like a fever dream. Alara stumbled more than walked, her body finally giving in to the abuse she'd put it through. But every time her knees buckled, he was there, catching her, holding her up, never letting her fall. She should have been afraid of him. Everything about Kale screamed danger, from the predatory grace in his movements to the barely contained violence that seemed to simmer just beneath his skin. This was a man who'd earned his crown through bloodshed, who ruled through fear and fury. But when he looked at her, all she saw was concern. It didn't make sense. None of this made sense. "There's a cave system about 2 miles north," Kale said quietly, his voice cutting through her spiraling thoughts. "We'll stop there. You need rest." "I'm fine," Alara lead. He stopped walking and turned to face her. One dark eyebrow rose. You're bleeding from at least 5 different wounds. You can barely stand. And your skin is cold enough that I'm surprised you haven't gone into shock yet. His tone was matter of fact, but there was an edge to it. You're not fine. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. What was the point? He was right. She was a disaster held together by sheer stubbornness and the fading dregs of adrenaline. 2 miles, she said instead. I can make it. Something softened in his expression, approval, maybe, or respect. I know you can. But instead of releasing her hand, he shrugged out of his heavy black coat and draped it around her shoulders. The warmth was immediate and overwhelming. The coat smelled like him, pine and smoke and winter storms, and it was so large on her frame that it fell almost to her knees. She pulled it tighter, savoring the heat, trying to ignore how much the simple gesture affected her. When was the last time someone had given her something? Offered comfort, without demanding payment? She couldn't remember. They walked on, and with each step, Alara felt the walls she'd built around herself starting to crack. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable, it was weighted, loaded with questions. Neither of them seemed ready to voice yet, but her mind wouldn't stop spinning. Who was she? The question had haunted her for 23 years. An Omega, born into the Clearwater Pack, a small, unremarkable territory in the eastern mountains. She should have been weak, submissive, forgettable. Instead, she'd been a nightmare from the moment of her first shift. Alara's throat tightened as the memories came flooding back, unwanted, unwelcome, but impossible to suppress. She'd been 16, young, naive, still believing that maybe, just maybe, she could be normal. The shift had come during the full moon ceremony, a sacred ritual where young wolves proved themselves to the pack. She remembered the elders' words, "Let the moon guide you, embrace your true form." So she had, and everything had gone wrong. The pain hit first, not the usual ache of bones reshaping, but agony so intense she'd screamed until her voice gave out. Her packmates had backed away, eyes wide with horror, as silver light erupted from her skin. Not the golden glow of a healthy shift. Silver, like moonlight, turned poisonous. Her wolf had emerged, but it was wrong. All wrong. Where other wolves were brown or gray or black, hers was pure white, marked with silver flames that flickered along her fur like living tattoos. Her eyes had burned with that same silver fire, and the power gods, the power that had poured off her in waves. It had brought the elders to their knees. Cursed, someone had screamed. She bears the mark of the fallen. And just like that, everything changed. They dragged her to the elders' hall, forced her back into human form, and held her down, while the head elder pressed a silver brand to her forehead, marking her as tainted, as other, as something that should have never existed. Your bloodline was supposed to die out, the elder had hissed, his face twisted with fear and disgust. The silver bloods were purged centuries ago for a reason. They were too powerful, too unstable. They nearly destroyed us all. I didn't choose this. Alara had sobbed. Please. I didn't. It doesn't matter what you chose. You heir this, and we will not risk another silver blood purge. They'd exiled her that night. Cast her out with nothing but the clothes on her back and a warning. If we see you again, we will kill you. Run, cursed one. Run, and never stop. So she had. Alara. Kale's voice pulled her back to the present. She blinked, realizing they'd stopped walking. He was watching her with an intensity that made her feel stripped bare. You left, he said quietly. Where did you go? The past. Her voice came out rough. It has teeth. Yes, he agreed. It usually does. They stood there in the falling snow, and Alara realized her hands were shaking. Not from cold. From memory. From the weight of 7 years spent running from who and what she was. The brand on your forehead, Kale said, his eyes fixed on the silver mark. It's a silver blood seal. Her breath caught. You know what I am. I know the stories. His jaw tightened. The silver bloods were a bloodline touched by the old moon, the first moon that rose before the gods divided the world. They were powerful beyond measure, could command silver fire, shift into forms that made even alphas bow. He paused. They were also hunted to extinction 300 years ago because the packs feared them. Not extinction, Alara whispered. Obviously. No, not extinction. Kale stepped closer. And gods, he was so much larger than her. She should have felt threatened. Instead, she felt sheltered. Your ancestors survived, went into hiding, diluted their bloodline through generations of careful breeding with ordinary wolves. His eyes searched hers. But sometimes, the old blood resurfaces, stronger than ever. Lucky me, she said bitterly. Is it luck? He tilted his head. Or destiny? I told you, I don't believe in destiny. And I told you neither do I. But I believe in power. And yours. He reached out slowly, his fingers hovering near her forehead without quite touching the brand. It's extraordinary, terrifying, and completely untrained. Shame burned through her. I can't control it. Every time I try to shift, every time I feel strong emotion, it takes over. The silver fire comes out and I can't stop it. I've hurt people, Kale. Not on purpose, but how many? The question was blunt, direct. She appreciated that he didn't try to comfort her with empty words. 3. The admission felt like swallowing glass. The first was an alpha who tried to claim me in a pack 2 years ago. He thought because I was Omega, I'd be easy to dominate. When he grabbed me, the curse, it burned him. 3rd-degree burns across his entire chest. She closed her eyes. The second was a rogue who attacked me on the road. I tried to run, but he wouldn't stop. The silver fire erupted and it didn't just burn him, it consumed him. There was nothing left but ash. And the third? Her voice broke. A child. A little girl who got too close when I was trying to control a shift. The fire lashed out and caught her arm. She survived. But the memory of that little girl's screams would haunt her forever. That's when I stopped trying to shift. Stopped trying to be anything other than human. Because being a wolf, being what I really am, it only brings pain. Silence stretched between them. Then Kale did something unexpected. He took her face in his hands, gentle, careful, like she was something precious instead of cursed, and made her look at him. Listen to me, he said, his voice low and fierce. You are not a monster. You are powerful. There's a difference. Power that hurts people is power that hasn't been taught, hasn't been guided, hasn't been understood. His thumbs brushed along her cheekbones, and she realized with shock that tears were streaming down her face. The Silverbloods weren't hunted because they were evil, Alara. They were hunted because they couldn't be controlled. Because they answered to no one, not to pack law, not to territory boundaries, not to the gods themselves. They were free, and that terrified everyone. You're saying my ancestors were killed for being too powerful? I'm saying they were killed because weak men fear what they can't dominate. His eyes blazed with something dark and dangerous. And I'm saying that anyone who tried to make you ashamed of your strength deserves what's coming to them. The words hit her like a physical blow, not of pain, but of something else. Something that felt dangerously close to hope. Why are you doing this? She whispered. Why do you care? Kale's expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering across his features before he locked it away. Because I know what it's like, he said quietly. To be feared for something you didn't choose. To be called a monster by people who've never felt true power. To spend your whole life being told you're too much, too dangerous, too broken to be loved. Her heart clenched. They call you the Fury King? Yes, because you can't control your rage. No. His smile was bitter. Because I choose not to. There's a difference. And suddenly, she understood. This wasn't just about her. Kale recognized something in her because he carried the same burden, the weight of power that made others afraid. The loneliness that came from being set apart. What happened to you? The question slipped out before she could stop it. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. His hands dropped away from her face, and that vulnerable expression shuttered closed. But then, my father tried to kill me when I was 12, he said flatly. He believed I was cursed by the war god, born with a rage that would consume our pack. So he locked me in silver chains and left me to die in the northern wastes. His jaw clenched. I survived, and when I came back 10 years later, I took his throne and his life, in that order, Horror and understanding warred in Alara's chest. "Kale, I'm not telling you this for pity," he cut her off. "I'm telling you because you need to understand something. Your power doesn't make you a monster. What you do with it, that's what matters. And right now, you're running from it instead of claiming it." His eyes locked on hers. "I won't let you keep running. You don't get to decide that." "No," he agreed. "But I can help you, if you let me." The offer hung in the air between them, impossible and tempting, and absolutely terrifying. "Why?" she asked again, desperate for an answer that made sense. "Why do you care about some cursed Omega you've never met?" Kale was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was so low she almost didn't hear it. "Because the dreams didn't start 6 months ago, Alara. They started 23 years ago, the night you were born." His eyes burned into hers. "I've been looking for you my entire life." The world tilted. "That's impossible," she breathed. "Is it?" He stepped back, giving her space, even though everything in his body language screamed that he wanted to do the opposite. "Come on. The cave isn't far. We'll talk more when you're warm and safe." He turned and started walking, leaving her standing there in the snow, mind reeling. 23 years. He'd been dreaming of her since she was born. What did that mean? What kind of connection could span an entire lifetime without them ever meeting? Unless... No, it couldn't be. But as Alara followed Kale through the darkening forest, wrapped in his coat, and trying to ignore the way her curse hummed contentedly in his presence, she couldn't shake one terrible, wonderful, impossible thought. What if he was right? What if this wasn't coincidence or luck or chance? What if the universe had been pulling them together all along? And if that was true, if they were somehow bound by something older than pack law or common sense, then what did that make them? The answer scared her more than any hunter ever could. Chapter 4. The cave wasn't what Alara expected. From the outside, it looked ordinary. Just another dark opening in the mountainside, half hidden behind a curtain of frozen vines. But the moment Kale stepped through the entrance, something shifted in the air, a hum of energy that made her curse sit up and pay attention. "What is this place?" she whispered. Kale glanced back at her, his expression unreadable in the shadows. "Sanctuary. One of the old places the first wolves used before packs divided the territories, before laws and boundaries and all the things that came after." He moved deeper into the cave, and Alara followed, partly because she had nowhere else to go, partly because something about this place called to her, drew her in like a moth to flame. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber, and her breath caught. The walls were covered in symbols, ancient markings carved deep into the stone, and filled with something that glowed faintly silver in the darkness. Not paint, not anything made by human hands. The light seemed to come from within the rock itself, pulsing gently like a heartbeat, and in the center of the chamber stood a stone altar. It was massive, easily 10 feet across, carved from a single piece of black granite that seemed to absorb the light around it. More symbols covered its surface, spiraling inward toward the center where a shallow basin had been carved. Even from here, Alara could feel the power emanating from it. Old power. Primal power. The kind that existed before gods had names. "Kale," she breathed, taking an unconscious step forward. "What is this?" "A shrine to the old moon." His voice echoed strangely in the chamber, layered with something that made it sound like multiple voices speaking at once. "This is where the first wolves came to commune with the source of all shifter magic. Before the gods divided the moon's power among the packs. Before bloodlines became political tools instead of sacred gifts." Alara's eyes traced the symbols on the walls. She couldn't read them, not with her conscious mind, but something deeper recognized the shapes. Her curse thrummed in response, silver light beginning to flicker beneath her skin. "I shouldn't be here," she said suddenly, taking a step back. "This is sacred ground and I'm exactly where you're supposed to be." Kale moved to stand beside her, his presence grounding her when panic started to claw up her throat. "Look at the symbols, Alara. Really look." She didn't want to. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to get away from this place before something terrible happened. But Kale's hand found hers again, solid, warm, anchoring, and somehow that gave her the courage to look. The symbols swam in her vision at first, meaningless shapes and spirals. But then, her curse flared. Silver light erupted from her skin, brighter than before, and suddenly the symbols made sense. They weren't random markings. They were a story. A prophecy written in the language of the first wolves. When the old blood rises, when silver fire walks the earth, when the fury and the flame are bound, the first moon shall remember its children. No, Alara whispered. But she couldn't look away. Two halves of a broken whole. Rage without mercy, power without control. Only together can they stand. Only together can they heal what was sundered. This isn't real, she said, but her voice shook. This is just its mythology. Stories told to scare children. Is it? Kale's voice was quiet beside her. Then why can you read it? Why does your curse recognize these words? Because it did. Gods help her. It did. The silver fire beneath her skin pulsed in rhythm with the glowing symbols, like her body was responding to something it had always known but never understood. Beware the union of fury and flame, for they will either save the world or burn it to ash. Alara tore her gaze away from the wall, breathing hard. You brought me here on purpose. You knew I would see this. Yes. Why? Kale turned to face her fully, and in the silver light of the cave, he looked almost otherworldly, like something carved from shadow and storm. Because you needed to understand what you are, what we might be. Don't, she said sharply. Don't say it. Fated mates. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. The fury and the flame. That's what the prophecy calls us. No. She backed away from him, shaking her head violently. Fated mates are rare, 1 in 1,000 pairs, and even then, it's supposed to be beautiful. Perfect. Not this. Not a cursed Omega and a king called Fury. Why not? Kale's eyes blazed. Because we're both too broken? Too dangerous? Too damaged to deserve something sacred? Because we'll destroy each other. The words ripped out of her, raw and desperate. Look at what I am, Kale. Look at what you are. You said it yourself, your father tried to kill you because of your rage. You can't control it. And I can't control my curse. If we're bound together, if this is real, her voice cracked, we'll burn the world down. Maybe. He stepped toward her, closing the distance she'd created. Or maybe we're the only ones strong enough to survive each other. That's not how this works, isn't it? He was close now, so close she could feel the heat radiating off him, could see the gold flecks in his eyes that seemed to glow brighter in the sacred darkness. Tell me you don't feel it, Alara. Tell me your curse doesn't sing when I'm near. Tell me you haven't wondered why, out of all the wolves in all the territories, I was the one who found you tonight. She couldn't. Gods. She couldn't lie about this. The bond between them, whatever it was, it hummed like a living thing. Her curse recognized him on a level she didn't understand. And worse, her wolf, the broken, twisted, beautiful thing she'd tried to suppress for 7 years it wanted him. This will end badly, she whispered. Probably. His hand came up to cup her face again, and this time she didn't pull away. But I've spent my entire life dreaming of you, seeing flashes of silver fire in the darkness, waking up with your name on my lips and no idea why. And now you're here, real, breathing, standing in front of me. His thumb traced her cheekbone. I'm not letting you go just because we might burn. Kale, look at the altar, he said quietly. She didn't want to. But his hand dropped away, leaving her cold, and she found herself turning toward the massive stone structure in the center of the chamber. The symbols carved into its surface were glowing brighter now, responding to the silver light still emanating from her skin. And as she watched, the shallow basin at the center began to fill not with water, but with liquid moonlight. Pure, luminous, impossible. What's happening? She breathed. The shrine is waking up. Kale's voice held something like awe. It hasn't done this in centuries. Not since the last Silverblood walked these halls. The liquid light rose higher, filling the basin until it overflowed, spilling down the sides of the altar in rivulets that shouldn't exist. But instead of pooling on the ground, the light spread across the floor in patterns. More symbols. More prophecy. Alara's feet moved without her permission, drawn toward the altar like it was calling her name. She could hear it now, a voice that wasn't a voice. A pull that came from somewhere deeper than bone. Come, daughter of silver. Come and remember. Alara, wait. Kale's voice, sharp with concern. But she was already at the altar, her hands reaching for the basin, even though every rational thought told her not to. The moment her fingers touched the liquid light, the world exploded. She was standing in a forest, but not the one outside the cave. This forest was ancient trees, so tall they seemed to hold up the sky. And the moon gods, the moon was different. Larger, fuller, silver instead of white, and it sang. You've come at last. Alara spun. A woman stood behind her, tall, regal, with hair that fell in silver waves down to her waist. Her eyes glowed with the same fire that burned in Alara's veins. Who are you? Alara whispered. I am what you will become, if you survive. The woman smiled, sad and knowing. I am Selenara, first of the silver bloodline. Your ancestor. Your burden. Your blessing. I don't understand. You will. Selenara moved closer, and Alara saw that she wasn't solid, she was made of moonlight and memory, barely holding form. Our bloodline was never meant to be weak, child. We were created to be the old moon's champions, to balance the scales when power grew too great in any one form. Her eyes burned brighter. The Rage Kings were our counterpart, alphas, born with fury so intense they could level mountains. Together, our lines kept the peace. Fury and flame, always bound, always balanced. But we were hunted, Alara said. Killed. Yes. Because the other packs grew jealous. Afraid. They convinced themselves that power like ours was unnatural, dangerous. Selenara's expression hardened. So they destroyed us, scattered both bloodlines to the wind. And for 300 years, the world has been broken because of it. What does that have to do with me? Everything. The word echoed through the impossible forest. You are the first true silver blood born in 3 centuries, and he... Her eyes shifted to something behind Alara. He is the first true Rage King in just as long. The old moon has been waiting for this, for you, for the balance to be restored. Alara turned and saw Kale standing at the edge of the clearing. But he looked different here, wild, primal, golden light flickering around him like flames. His eyes met hers across the distance, and the recognition in them stole her breath. You've always known each other, Selenara said softly. Soul calls to soul. The bond doesn't start when you meet. It starts when you're born. This is too much. Alara breathed. I can't, I'm not strong enough for this. You are the daughter of silver fire. Selenara's hand touched her shoulder, light and insubstantial, but somehow comforting. You are stronger than you know, but you must choose, Alara. The bond can be accepted or denied. Fate offers, but it does not force. And if I deny it, then you will live your life alone. Running. Always running. And the world will remain broken. And if I accept it? Selenara's smile turned sharp. Then you will burn, child. You will burn so bright that gods will remember your name. But you will not burn alone. Alara gasped, her hands jerking away from the basin. She was back in the cave, back in the present. But the vision clung to her like smoke, and she could still feel the weight of Selenara's words pressing against her chest. Kale was beside her instantly, his hands on her shoulders. What did you see? Everything, she whispered. I saw everything. The silver light from her skin was brighter now, illuminating the entire chamber. And when she looked down, she saw that the mark on her forehead, the brand that had been burned into her skin 7 years ago, it was glowing, not with pain, with power. The prophecy is real, she said, her voice hollow. We're supposed to be. I know. Kale's grip tightened. I saw it too. She looked up sharply. What? The moment you touched the altar, I saw her, Selenara, and my own ancestor Malachi, first of the Rage Kings. His eyes were wild, filled with the same shock and awe she felt. They showed me the same thing, told me the same story. Of course they had. Because this wasn't just her burden, it was theirs. Together, fury and flame. Alara's legs gave out, and Kale caught her, lowering them both to the ground. She sat there, wrapped in his arms, and tried to process everything that had just shattered her understanding of the world. "This doesn't make sense," she said numbly. "Fated mates are supposed to be gentle. Beautiful. Not a prophecy about destruction and balance and burning the world. Maybe that's because most fated mates aren't born from bloodlines created to be weapons," Kale said quietly. "We were never meant to be soft, Alara. We were meant to be strong. I don't want to be strong. I just want to be normal. Normal died the night you first shifted." His voice wasn't cruel, just honest. "You can't run from this anymore. The old moon has marked you, claimed you, and whether you accept the bond or not, your power isn't going away." She knew he was right. Gods, she knew, but the weight of it, the sheer impossible enormity of what was being asked of her. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Good." Kale's arms tightened around her. "So am I." That surprised her enough that she pulled back to look at him. "You're the Fury King. What could you possibly be afraid of?" His smile was bitter. "Hurting you, failing you, being exactly the monster everyone says I am." His eyes searched hers. "You're not the only one who's scared of their own power, Alara." And there it was. The vulnerability beneath the crown. The man beneath the legend. He was just as broken as she was. Just as afraid. Just as lost. "What do we do now?" she asked. Kale was quiet for a long moment, his gaze distant. Then he looked back at her. And something in his expression hardened with resolve. "Now," he said. "We stop running, both of us, and we figure out if this bond makes us stronger." His hand came up to cup her face, thumb tracing just beneath the glowing brand on her forehead. "Or if the prophecy was right, and we burn the whole damn world to ash." The choice hung between them, impossible and terrifying, and absolutely real. Accept the bond, claim her power, stop hiding from what she was. Or run. Again. Forever. Alara closed her eyes and felt the silver fire singing in her veins, felt Kale's warmth anchoring her, felt the old moon watching from somewhere beyond the veil. Fury. And flame. Maybe they would burn, but at least they wouldn't burn alone. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, I'll try." Kale's arms tightened around her. And for the first time in 7 years, Alara felt something she'd forgotten how to feel. Hope. It was small, fragile, probably foolish, but it was there. And as the ancient symbols on the walls pulsed with silver light, as the old moon's power hummed through the sacred stone, as two broken souls sat wrapped together in the darkness, the world held its breath, and waited to see if they would rise, or fall. Chapter 5. Dawn came too quickly. Alara woke to pale light filtering through the cave entrance, and the sound of her own breathing steady, calm, so different from the panicked gasps that had marked the last 3 days. For a moment, she just lay there, wrapped in Kale's coat, trying to remember the last time she'd slept without nightmares. She couldn't. But last night, cocooned in the old moon's sanctuary with Kale standing guard near the entrance, she'd slept deeply, dreamlessly, like her body finally believed it was safe. That should have been her first warning. Safety was an illusion. It always had been. "You're awake." Kale's voice drew her attention. He stood silhouetted against the cave entrance, his broad shoulders blocking most of the light. He looked like he hadn't slept at all, which was probably true. Alpha Kings didn't rest when threats still circled in the darkness. "How long was I out?" Her voice came out rough, unused. 6 hours. He turned to face her, and she saw the tension written in every line of his body. Something had changed. Something had happened while she slept. "We need to move." Soon. Alara sat up, every muscle protesting. Her wounds from yesterday had scabbed over, accelerated healing. The one blessing of her cursed bloodline, but she was still sore. Still weak. "What's wrong?" "Everything." Kale moved toward her with that predatory grace she was beginning to recognize. "The hunters you escaped?" "They reported back to their council last night, and the council contacted mine." Ice flooded her veins. "Your council knows about me?" "Now they do." His jaw clenched. And they're not happy that their king claimed a cursed Omega without consulting them first. You didn't claim me, didn't I? His eyes met hers, burning with intensity. I told those hunters you were mine. In wolf culture, that's as binding as a blood oath. I might as well have marked you in front of witnesses. Her breath caught. Marking was sacred, the final step in accepting a mate bond. It meant protection, possession, and a promise that couldn't be broken without destroying both parties. Kale, you can't just, you didn't even ask. I know. He ran a hand through his dark hair, frustration radiating off him in waves. I wasn't thinking. I saw them hunting you, saw you bleeding at that cliff's edge, and something in me just, he cut himself off, shaking his head. It doesn't matter now. What's done is done, but my counsel is demanding I bring you to the capital, to stand trial. To stand trial. Trial? The word tasted like ash. For what crime? Existing. His voice was bitter. The old laws still stand in most territories. Any wolf bearing the silver blood mark is to be executed on sight. No trial, no mercy, just death. Alara's hand went automatically to the brand on her forehead. Then why are they bothering with a trial at all? Because I'm their king, and they can't outright defy me. But they can pressure me. Force me to choose between you and my throne. Kale's eyes darkened. They think if they give me an ultimatum in front of the entire pack, I'll choose power over you, that I'll let them execute you to maintain order. And will you? The question came out steadier than she felt. He crossed the distance between them in 2 strides, dropping to one knee so they were eye level. When he spoke, his voice was low and absolutely certain. I would burn my throne to ash before I let anyone touch you. The words hit her like a physical blow. You don't mean that, don't I? His hand came up, fingers brushing her cheek with impossible gentleness. You're my fated mate, Alara. The other half of my soul. The prophecy made that clear, and even if it hadn't, even if the bond was just my imagination, I still wouldn't hand you over to be slaughtered like an animal. You barely know me. I've known you my entire life. The conviction in his voice made her chest ache. The dreams, the visions, the feeling that something was missing that was you. Always you. So no, I won't sacrifice you for politics or fear or tradition. I'll fight every wolf in my territory before I let that happen. Alara wanted to believe him. Gods. She wanted to so badly it hurt. But she'd learned the hard way that promises were fragile things. They'll kill you too, if you defy your counsel. If you choose me over them, they'll see it as weakness. They'll challenge your right to rule. Let them try. Kale's smile was sharp and dangerous. I didn't take my throne through politics, Alara. I took it through blood. And I've held it the same way for 10 years. Any wolf who thinks I've gone soft is welcome to test that theory. A sound echoed from outside the cave, distant but distinct. Howls. Multiple wolves calling to each other across the mountain range. Kale's head snapped toward the entrance, every muscle in his body going taut. They're here. Who? My council's enforcers. He stood, pulling her up with him. They must have tracked us through the night, faster than I expected. Panic clawed up Alara's throat. How many? At least 10, maybe more. He was already moving, gathering the few supplies they had. We can't fight them. Not here. Not with you still recovering. Then what? We run. He grabbed her hand, his grip firm. There's another exit at the back of the cave system. It leads deeper into the mountains. If we can reach the border territories. Alpha King. The voice boomed from outside, amplified by wolf magic. We know you're in there. Come out. Bring the cursed one with you. The council demands an audience. Kale's eyes flashed gold, his wolf rising to the surface. Stay behind me, he growled. No matter what happens. Stay behind me. Kale, maybe we should trust me. He looked back at her, and the intensity in his gaze stole her breath. Please. Trust me. She did. That was the terrifying part. She trusted this man she'd known for less than a day more than she'd trusted anyone in 7 years. Okay, she whispered. They moved toward the cave entrance together, Kale's body positioned between her and whatever waited outside. As they stepped into the morning light, Alara's eyes adjusted to reveal a scene that made her blood run cold. Wolves. Dozens of them, arranged in a semicircle around the cave entrance. All in human form, but their eyes glowed with wolf light. Alpha energy radiated from several of them, members of Kale's council, she realized, the ones who held power second only to the king himself. At the center stood a man who looked carved from ice and anger, tall, silver-haired, with scars that spoke of countless battles won, his eyes pale blue, and utterly cold, fixed on Alara, with the kind of hatred that promised death. "Elder Rowan," Kale said, his voice flat. "You're a long way from the capital, and you're harboring a criminal, my king." The title sounded like an insult. "The council sent us to retrieve you both. For your own protection, of course." "Of course," Kale's tone was dry. "And if I refuse? Then you force us to take more drastic measures." Rowan's gaze never left Alara. "The silver blood mark has been declared a capital offense for 300 years. No king, not even you, has the authority to overturn that law without unanimous council approval. And you'll never give that approval." "And, no." Rowan smiled, thin and cruel. "We won't. The Silverbloods nearly destroyed our ancestors. We won't risk another purge because our king developed a soft spot for a pretty face." Kale's growl was pure alpha dominance. "Watch your tongue, Elder. Or I'll remove it. Will you?" Rowan took a step forward, and the wolves behind him tensed. "Is that what you've become? A king who threatens his own council over an Omega nobody? Your father would be ashamed. My father was a coward who tried to murder his own son." Kale's voice dropped to something deadly. "And I killed him for it. Keep pushing me, Rowan, and you'll join him." The tension ratcheted up to unbearable levels. Alara could feel violence gathering in the air like a storm about to break. These wolves wanted blood, hers specifically, but they'd settle for anyone's. "Please," she said quietly, stepping out from behind Kale before he could stop her. "Don't do this. Don't make him choose between me and his people. I'm not worth a civil war." "Alara," Kale's hand shot out to pull her back, but she evaded his grasp. She faced the council, forcing herself to stand tall even though every instinct screamed at her to run. "I know what I am. I know what you think I am. And maybe you're right. Maybe I am too dangerous to live." Her voice shook, but held. "But he's your king. He's kept you safe for 10 years. Don't destroy that because of me." "How noble," Rowan said mockingly. "The cursed one offers herself as sacrifice. But nobility doesn't change blood, girl. You're an abomination. A threat to everything we've built. And we will not suffer you to live simply because our king has developed an unfortunate attachment." "Unfortunate? It's not an attachment." Kale's voice cut through the clearing like a blade. "She's my fated mate." Silence. Absolute. Crushing silence. Then chaos erupted. "Impossible. The king is delusional. She's bewitched him. This is the curse at work." "Enough." Kale's alpha command rolled out like thunder, forcing every wolf to their knees. Even Alara felt the weight of it, though it didn't compel her the same way. The mate bond, she realized. It protected her from his dominance. "I am your king. You will listen when I speak." Rowan struggled back to his feet, fury written across his face. "You claim this thing as your mate?" "I claim Alara as my fated mate, yes. The old moon has bound us. I've seen the prophecy with my own eyes." "Prophecy." Rowan spat the word like poison. "You sound like a madman, chasing myths and legends. The old moon is dead. Has been for centuries. There are no more fated pairs from the ancient bloodlines." "Then explain this." Kale pulled Alara forward gently, turning her so the council could see her forehead. The silver brand that marked her as cursed was glowing, reacting to the tension, to Kale's proximity, to the power gathering in the clearing. "Explain why the silver blood mark burns silver instead of scar tissue. Explain why the old moon's shrine woke after 300 years of silence." Murmurs rippled through the assembled wolves. Fear, awe, confusion. "It doesn't matter," Rowan said, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. "Even if she is your fated mate, especially if she is, she must die. The prophecy speaks of destruction, not salvation." Fury and flame will burn the world. You know this. The prophecy speaks of balance, Kale corrected. Of power returned to its rightful form, of breaking the chains that have kept both our bloodlines suppressed for generations. And who decides that? Rowan demanded. You? A king barely past 30 who's led us for a mere decade? You would risk everything, every life in this territory on the word of ancient stones and a bond you barely understand? Yes. Kale's answer was immediate. Absolute. Because I've spent my entire life being told my rage makes me a monster, that I'm too dangerous, too broken, too damaged to be anything more than a weapon. His hand found Alara's, fingers lacing through hers. And now I've found someone who understands that, who carries the same burden, the same curse, the same power. His eyes blazed. I won't let you kill her for being what I am. Then you choose her over us. Rowan's voice was heavy with finality. Over your pack, your people, your throne. I choose truth over fear. Kale squared his shoulders. And if that costs me the throne, so be it. The words hung in the air, a declaration of war. Rowan's expression hardened into something terrible. So be it indeed. He raised his hand, and the wolves behind him shifted into attack positions. By the power vested in me as High Elder, I declare Alpha King Kale unfit to rule. He has broken sacred law, defied council mandate, and chosen his own selfish desires over the safety of his people. His eyes glowed with wolf light. I hereby invoke the right of challenge. At sunset tonight, any Alpha who wishes may challenge the king for his throne, and when he falls, and he will fall, the silver blood dies with him. Horror crashed through Alara. The right of challenge was ancient, brutal law, a way to remove a king who'd become tyrannical. But it wasn't a single duel. It was wave after wave of challengers until the king either defended his throne or died trying. You coward, Kale snarled. Too afraid to challenge me yourself, so you'll send others to die first. I'm a survivor, Rowan corrected coldly, and I'll watch you bleed out on the challenge grounds tonight, knowing that your death was your own choice. You could have given us the girl, could have saved yourself, but your pride, your rage. He smiled. It will be your end. Just like your father always said. Kale moved so fast Alara barely saw it. One moment he was beside her. The next, he had Rowan by the throat, lifting the elder off his feet. Gold light exploded from his skin. Alpha dominance turned physical, turned violent. Touch her, Kale whispered, and his voice was barely human. Touch her, and I will paint this mountain with your blood. Council law, challenge law. I don't care. She is mine, and I protect what's mine. With fury. He released Rowan, letting him drop to the ground, gasping. Then Kale turned his back on the council, the ultimate show of contempt, and faced Alara. Can you run? He asked quietly. What? Can you run? His eyes were desperate now. We have until sunset, maybe 10 hours. If we can get far enough, they'll hunt us forever, she whispered. You know they will. Then we run forever. His hand cupped her face. I meant what I said. I won't let them have you. Tears burned at the back of her eyes. Kale, you can't give up everything for me. Your throne. Your people. They stopped being my people the moment they demanded your death. He pressed his forehead to hers. Run with me, please, we'll figure out the rest later. Behind them, Rowan's voice rang out. You have until sunset, Alpha King. Use that time however you wish. Pray to your old moon. Beg your cursed Omega for strength. It won't matter. Come sunset, you face the challenge grounds. Or we hunt you both down like the rabid animals you are. Alara looked into Kale's eyes and saw her own desperation reflected back. They were trapped. No matter which way they ran, death waited. Unless, what if I fight? She said suddenly. Kale's eyes widened. What? The right of challenge, it applies to threats against the throne, right? And they see me as the threat. Her mind raced, pieces clicking together. What if I accept challenge instead? Face the council in combat? If I win? No. Kale's voice was iron. Absolutely not. You've never trained for formal combat. You can barely control your shift. They'd tear you apart. They're going to tear us both apart anyway. She grabbed his arms. At least this way, you keep your throne, your people, everything you fought for. Everything I've fought for means nothing without you. His voice cracked. Don't you understand that yet? And don't you understand that I can't watch you die for me? Tears spilled down her cheeks. I've spent 7 years running, Kale. 7 years afraid of my own power, afraid of hurting people. But maybe, her voice dropped to a whisper, maybe that power exists for a reason. Maybe the old moon gave it to me so I could stand here, right now, and fight. Elara, I'm not asking permission. She straightened, feeling the silver fire stir beneath her skin. I'm telling you. At sunset, I stand in the challenge grounds. Not you. Me. The council won't accept. Then make them. She held his gaze, letting him see her resolve. You're the Alpha King, command it. For a long moment, Kale just stared at her anguish and pride and fury warring in his expression. Then he did something she didn't expect. He knelt before her. The gesture shocked everyone, the council, the enforcers, even Elara herself. An Alpha King didn't kneel. Not to anyone. But Kale looked up at her with eyes full of gold fire, and something that looked dangerously like love. If you do this, he said quietly, you don't fight alone. Understand? Whatever happens in those grounds, I'm with you. Your power and mine. Fury and flame. She nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Then may the old moon have mercy on anyone who tries to harm you. He stood, turning back to face Rowan. You want blood, Elder? You'll have it. But not mine. His voice rang with alpha command. At sunset, Elara of Silverblood stands in the challenge grounds. Any wolf who wishes to deny her right to exist may face her there. But know this. His eyes blazed. She doesn't fight alone. And if any of you break combat law, if any of you try to overwhelm her with numbers or cheat your way to her death, his smile was all teeth. I will show you exactly why they call me the Fury King. Rowan's expression twisted with rage and calculation. But he couldn't refuse. Challenge law was absolute. And if Elara offered herself willingly, the council had no choice but to accept. So be it, Rowan said coldly. Sunset, the capital's challenge grounds. We'll see if the cursed one bleeds silver or red. The wolves dispersed, melting back into the forest to prepare for the evening's bloodshed. Within minutes, Elara and Kale stood alone in the clearing, 2 souls against the world. I'm terrified, she whispered. Good. Kale pulled her against his chest, and she felt his heart racing just as fast as hers. That means you're smart. But terror isn't the same as defeat. Teach me. She looked up at him. We have 10 hours. Teach me how to fight. Elara, please. Her voice broke. I'm going to do this, with or without your help. But I'd rather face them with it. Kale stared down at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly, resolve hardening his features. 10 hours, he said, to turn a girl who spent 7 years running into a warrior who can stand and fight. His hand cupped her face. All right, let's see if the old moon was right about you. They walked back into the cave not to hide, but to prepare, to train, to ready themselves for a battle that would decide not just their fates, but the fate of every wolf who'd ever been called too dangerous to live. At sunset, the world would see what happened when you cornered a Silverblood, when you gave her no choice but to fight back, when you forced the flame to burn. Chapter 6. The first hour was brutal. Kale didn't coddle her, didn't go easy. The moment they were back in the cave's main chamber, he stripped off his shirt and dropped into a fighting stance that was all predatory grace and lethal efficiency. Come at me, he said. Elara stared at him. What? You heard me. Attack. However you want. Show me what you've got. She hesitated. The silver fire was already stirring beneath her skin, responding to the tension, to the command in his voice. I don't know how to. I've never trained to fight. You've survived 7 years on the run with every wolf who found you trying to kill you. His eyes were steady, patient despite the urgency thrumming through both of them. You've fought before. You just didn't call it that. Now show me. So she did. Alara lunged forward, clumsy, desperate, all instinct and no technique. Kale sidestepped easily, catching her wrist as she passed, and using her own momentum to send her stumbling. Again. She tried. Again and again and again. Each time, he evaded or redirected, never hurting her but never letting her land a single blow. Her frustration built with each failed attempt, and with the frustration came the cursed silver light beginning to flicker beneath her skin. Good, Kale said, watching the glow intensify. Use it, don't fight it. I can't control. Then don't control it, direct it. He moved toward her, hands raised. Your curse isn't separate from you, Alara. It is you. The silver fire. The power that's your wolf trying to protect you. Trust her. She's not safe. Neither am I. His smile was sharp. We're going to teach you to be dangerous, remember? That starts with accepting what you are. He came at her, then not attacking, but pushing into her space, forcing her to react. Alara's instincts screamed. The curse flared. And without thinking, she threw her hands up. Silver fire erupted from her palms. Not an explosion. Not the uncontrolled chaos she was used to. But a focused burst that stopped Kale in his tracks. He smiled through the silver flames, dancing harmlessly around his skin. There she is, he murmured. There's my flame. The next hour, he taught her to do it again. And again. Small bursts of silver fire that she could summon and dismiss at will. It wasn't perfect, sometimes the power surged too strong, sometimes it fizzled out, but it was progress. Real, tangible progress. You're holding back, Kale observed as they paused for water. Even now, even knowing what's at stake. Because I'm afraid. Alara's hands trembled as she drank. Every time I let the power out, people get hurt. People who were trying to hurt you first, he countered. There's a difference between defense and destruction. Is there? She met his eyes. When the silver fire takes over, I can't think clearly. It's just rage and heat and that's because you've never learned to work with your wolf instead of against her. Kale moved closer, and she noticed sweat glistening on his skin despite the cave's chill. Your curse isn't a separate entity, Alara. It's you. Your fear, your pain, your power, all of it mixed together. And right now, you treat it like an enemy. So it acts like one. How do I change that? By talking to her. At her confused look, he elaborated. Your wolf, the part of you that shifts. You need to stop pushing her away and start listening. Understanding what she needs. What she's trying to protect. You make it sound so simple. It's not. His voice softened. Took me 15 years to make peace with my own rage. To understand that the fury wasn't trying to destroy me, it was trying to keep me alive. To give me the strength to survive when everything else wanted me dead. Alara studied him, this powerful, terrifying man who'd somehow become her anchor in the chaos. Is that how you control it? The fury? I don't control it. His smile was wry. I partner with it. Give it boundaries. Let it out when necessary and pull it back when it's not. Most of the time, that works. His expression darkened. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the rage wins and people die, and I have to live with that. Does it get easier? No. The honesty in his voice made her chest ache. But you get stronger. You learn to forgive yourself for being what you are. They sat in silence for a moment, both lost in their own thoughts. Then Kale stood, offering his hand. Come on, we're not done. The third hour, he taught her how to fight like a wolf without fully shifting. Partial transformation, he explained, demonstrating as his hands elongated into claws, his teeth sharpening to fangs. Useful when you need your wolf's strength but your human mind's clarity. Alara tried to copy him. The shift started, bones beginning to reshape. Silver fire crawling up her arms, then stopped. Stuck between forms. Pain lanced through her, and she gasped. Breathe, Kale commanded, his hands on her shoulders, grounding her. Don't force it. Ask your wolf what she wants to give you. It took 6 agonizing tries before she managed it. Claws extending from her fingertips. Her eyes burning silver instead of their usual brown. When she looked down at her transformed hands, wonder and fear warred in her chest. I did it, she whispered. You did. Kale's voice held unmistakable pride. Now let's teach you what to do with those claws. He showed her basic strikes, how to slash, how to parry, how to use her smaller size as an advantage instead of a weakness, how to move like water, like wind, like something too quick to catch. Wolves expect omegas to submit, he said, blocking one of her strikes and gently correcting her form. Use that, let them underestimate you, then tear their throats out before they realize their mistake. That's brutal. That's survival. His eyes were serious. Tonight, in those challenge grounds, wolves are going to come at you expecting an easy kill. You need to prove them wrong. Fast and violent enough that the others hesitate. Make them fear you. I don't want to be feared. Too bad. His voice was gentle despite the harsh words. You're a silver blood. Fear is your inheritance. Either you wield it, or it wields you. The 5th hour, they stopped for food. Kale had brought provisions, dried meat, bread, water, and they ate in companionable silence. Alara's body ached in ways she'd never experienced. Every muscle screamed, but there was something satisfying about the pain. Evidence that she was doing something, fighting instead of running. Tell me about your pack, Kale said quietly. The one that exiled you. Alara's throat tightened. Why? Because you need to remember why you're fighting. He leaned back against the cave wall, watching her. You're not fighting for survival anymore. Alara, you're fighting for justice. For every wolf who was ever cast out for being different. For every curse that was really a blessing in disguise. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, Clearwater Pack. Small territory in the eastern mountains. My parents were good people. Ordinary wolves with ordinary lives. They didn't know about my bloodline. Neither did I until, she trailed off. Until your first shift. Yeah, the memory still hurt. Everything changed in one night. The elders said my great-great-grandmother had been a silverblood who'd hidden her nature. Married into a normal pack. Tried to dilute the bloodline enough that it would die out. Alara's laugh was bitter. Guess it didn't work. What happened to your parents? Exiled with me at first. But the council gave them a choice. Renounce me and return to the pack, or stay banished forever. Her voice cracked. They chose the pack. Said they couldn't sacrifice their entire lives for a daughter who was already lost. Kale's expression darkened dangerously. They abandoned you. They survived. She forced the words out. I don't blame them. Not really. The pack was all they knew. And I was a stranger, wearing their daughter's face. That's not true, isn't it? Alara met his eyes. I stopped being their daughter the moment the curse manifested. I became something else. Something scary. You became yourself. Kale moved closer, his intensity palpable. And anyone who couldn't see that, who couldn't love you for exactly what you are, they didn't deserve you. Tears burned at the back of her eyes. You don't know me well enough to say that, don't I? His hand found hers. I know you've been running for 7 years and never once did you strike first. Never once did you use your power unless cornered. Never once did you become the monster they said you were. His thumb traced circles on her palm. I know you offered to die tonight rather than watch me lose my throne. I know you're brave and kind, and so much stronger than you believe. His eyes held hers. And I know that I would rather burn the world to ash than lose you. Kale, I mean it. His voice dropped to something raw and vulnerable. Whatever happens tonight, whatever comes after, you need to know that. You're not alone anymore. You'll never be alone again. The tears spilled over. She couldn't stop them. And when Kale pulled her against his chest, when his arms wrapped around her like he could shield her from everything that hurt, she finally let herself break. She cried for the parents who'd abandoned her, for the pack who'd branded her, for 7 years of loneliness and fear and constantly looking over her shoulder. She cried for the girl she might have been if the curse had never manifested. And she cried for the woman she was becoming, powerful and dangerous and so tired of running. Kale held her through all of it, never telling her to stop, never making her feel weak for feeling, just being there, solid, steady, real. When the tears finally subsided, Alara pulled back and looked up at him. Why are you doing this? Really? And don't tell me it's just the bond. There are wolves who've rejected fated mates before. Yes, he agreed quietly. There are. He was silent for a moment, seeming to wrestle with something internal. Then, when my father chained me up and left me to die in the northern wastes, I was 12 years old, still a child, still believing that maybe, somehow, I could be good enough, normal enough, rageless enough to be loved. Alara's heart clenched. I spent 3 weeks in those chains. Silver, so my wolf couldn't heal the burns. No food, no water, just cold and pain and waiting to die. His voice was matter of fact, but she could hear the old agony beneath it. And the worst part wasn't the physical suffering. It was the knowledge that my own father, the person who was supposed to protect me, had decided I was too broken to save. Kale. But I didn't die. His eyes met hers, burning with fierce intensity. Something in me refused. Some stubborn, furious part that said no. I will not give him this victory. And that rage, the thing my father feared most, that's what saved me. It burned through the silver chains. It kept me alive when I should have frozen. It carried me home when I had nothing left. He took her hand, pressing it against his chest, where she could feel his heart beating strong and steady. You asked why I'm doing this, he said softly. I'm doing this because I see myself in you, Alara. The child who was called broken, the wolf who was told their power was a curse instead of a gift, the soul who learned that being different meant being unworthy of love. His other hand came up to cup her face. And I'm doing this because if I can save you, if I can show you that your power is beautiful and your curse is really a blessing, then maybe I can finally believe it about myself. The confession hung in the air between them, raw and honest and absolutely devastating. You're not broken, Alara whispered. Neither are you. His forehead pressed against hers. But we're both afraid we are, aren't we? She nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Then let's prove them wrong. Kale's voice was fierce. Together. Let's walk into those challenge grounds tonight and show every wolf watching what happens when you give the broken ones a reason to fight back. What if I fail? The question came out small, frightened. Then we fail together. His lips brushed her, forehead gentle, reverent. And we get back up and try again, and again, and again, until either we win or the world ends. But we don't give up. Not on this. Not on us. Us. The word settled in her chest like a promise, like hope, like something worth fighting for. Alara pulled back just enough to look at him, really look at him. This king who'd thrown away everything for a cursed Omega he barely knew. This man who saw her power and called it beautiful instead of dangerous. This soul who understood her in ways no one ever had. I'm terrified of you, she admitted. His smile was soft, sad. Good. I'm terrified of you too. Why? Because you could destroy me. His thumb traced her cheekbone. Not with silver fire, or curse, or power, but with this. With trust and hope and the belief that maybe, just maybe, I could be someone worthy of you. That's more dangerous than any combat. You are worthy. I'm a king built on violence and rage, he interrupted gently. I've killed more wolves than I can count. Done things I'll never be proud of. My hands are stained with blood, Alara. And when you look at me like that, like I'm something good, I'm terrified that you're wrong. That one day you'll see what I really am and run. She reached up, covering his hand with hers. Then, I guess we're both scared of the same thing. Being seen. Yes. The word was barely a whisper. They stayed like that for a long moment, foreheads pressed together, breathing in sync, two broken souls trying to figure out how to be whole. Then Kale pulled back, his expression shifting back to focused determination. We have 4 more hours, let's not waste them. The remaining hours passed in a blur of training and strategy. Kale taught her weak points, where to strike to disable without killing, how to use leverage against larger opponents, when to go for the throat, and when to aim for the legs. He showed her how to read an opponent's intentions in their stance, their eyes, the way they distributed their weight. Most wolves telegraph their attacks, he explained. They can't help it. It's instinct. You're smaller, faster, use that. Let them commit to a strike, then be somewhere else before it lands. They sparred carefully at first, then with increasing intensity as Alara grew more confident. She landed her first solid hit in the 8th hour, her clawed hand catching his shoulder hard enough to draw blood. Kale grinned, feral and proud. Again. By the 9th hour, Alara was moving on pure instinct. Her body knew what to do before her mind could think it through. Dodge, strike, roll, counter. The silver fire responded to her will now instead of her fear flickering along her claws, adding heat to her strikes without consuming everything around her. She was beginning to understand what Kale meant. The curse wasn't separate. It was her. And she was magnificent. One more thing, Kale said as the 10th hour approached. The most important thing. What? He moved behind her, his chest against her back, his arms coming around to guide her stance. If things go badly tonight, if you're overwhelmed, if you can't win, I need you to promise me something. Alara's heart clenched. Kale, promise me you'll run. His voice was urgent, desperate. If I tell you to run, you run. You don't look back. You don't try to save me. You just go. As far and as fast as you can. I'm not leaving you. You will if I command it. His arms tightened around her. I can survive losing a throne, Alara. I can survive losing everything. But I cannot survive losing you. So, if it comes down to choosing between your life and mine. His lips brushed her ear. You choose yours. Understand? No. She turned in his arms to face him. I don't understand. I won't leave you to die. Then don't think of it as leaving me. Think of it as staying alive long enough for me to find you again. His eyes searched hers. Because I will. No matter what happens tonight, no matter how long it takes, I will find you. It was a promise, and a plea, and a prophecy all at once. Together, Alara said firmly. We face this together, or not at all. Kale stared at her for a long moment. Then he did something that surprised her. He smiled. Not his sharp, dangerous smile. Not his bitter, broken one, but something real, something warm. Something that made him look younger, lighter, almost happy. Stubborn Omega, he murmured. Impossible Alpha, she countered. And then, because they were out of time, and out of options, and possibly about to die, Kale kissed her. It was soft at first, gentle, a question more than a demand. But when Alara's hands fisted in his shirt, when she kissed him back with all the fear and hope and desperate need coursing through her, it turned into something else. Something fierce and consuming, and absolutely right. Silver fire and gold light erupted from both of them, twining together in the darkness. The cave walls hummed with power. The old moon's symbols glowed brighter than they had since Selenara's time, and for just a moment, two broken souls weren't broken anymore. They were whole. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kale rested his forehead against hers. Whatever happens, he whispered, I don't regret this, any of it. Neither do I, Alara said. And she meant it. Outside, the sun was beginning its descent toward the horizon. Sunset was coming, and with it, blood. Chapter 7. The capital rose from the northern mountains like a fortress carved from stone and will. Alara had never seen anything like it. Massive walls encircled the city, etched with protective runes that glowed faintly in the dying light. Watchtowers stood at intervals, each manned by guards, whose eyes tracked their approach with predatory focus. And at the center of it all, perched on the highest peak, stood the Alpha King's Keep, a structure of dark stone and sharp angles that looked like it had been built to withstand sieges from gods themselves. This was Kale's home, his kingdom, and she was about to fight for her life in its heart. They'd traveled in silence, Kale's hand never leaving hers. The bond between them hummed constantly now, a living connection she could feel with every breath. It should have been comforting. Instead, it terrified her, because if she died tonight, he would feel it. And if he died, she couldn't think about that. The city gates opened as they approached. Massive iron constructions that groaned under their own weight. Wolves lined the streets beyond, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all watching in absolute silence as their king walked through with a cursed Omega at his side. Alara forced herself to keep her head high, to meet their stares without flinching. But gods, the hatred in some of those eyes, the fear, the judgment, cursed one, abomination, death walking. She could hear the whispers even without Wolf hearing, could feel their revulsion like a physical weight pressing down on her shoulders. "Ignore them," Cale murmured, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "They're afraid. Fear makes people cruel. They want me dead. They want what they've been taught to want." His jaw clenched. "I'll change that. After tonight, when you prove yourself, if I survive tonight, you will." The certainty in his voice almost made her believe it. "I trained you. I know what you're capable of. And more importantly, you know now. You're not the same girl who ran from those hunters yesterday." He was right. She wasn't. 24 hours ago, she'd been ready to throw herself off a cliff rather than face her power. Now she was walking willingly into an arena where wolves wanted to tear her apart. Either she'd become braver, or she'd lost her mind entirely. The challenge grounds came into view as they rounded a corner, a massive circular arena carved directly into the mountainside. Stone benches rose in tiers around the edge, already filled with spectators. At the center lay a ring of bare earth, stained dark from centuries of blood. This was where Alpha Kings proved their right to rule, where challengers came to die or ascend. Where, tonight, Alara would either earn her place at Cale's side or join the countless wolves whose bones were buried beneath that blood-soaked ground. "Last chance," Cale said quietly as they approached the arena's entrance. "We can still run, disappear into the wilderness. They'd hunt us, but no." Alara stopped walking and turned to face him. "No more running. You taught me that. You showed me I could be strong." She reached up, touching his face. "I'm not running anymore." Something fierce and proud and painful flickered across his expression. "Then the old moon help anyone who stands against you." They entered the arena together. The crowd's murmur rose to a roar not of welcome, but of anticipation. Bloodlust. The wolves watching wanted a show, wanted violence, wanted to see the cursed one brought low. Elder Rowan stood at the center of the fighting ring, flanked by 6 other council members. All of them radiated alpha energy, powerful wolves in their own right, each commanding respect and fear from the assembled packs. "Alpha King Cale," Rowan's voice echoed through the arena, magically amplified. "You've come. We weren't certain you would. I gave my word." Cale's tone was cold. "I keep my promises. All of them, indeed." Rowan's gaze shifted to Alara, and the contempt in his eyes made her skin crawl. "The cursed one looks composed. Tell me, girl, do you understand what you've agreed to?" Alara stepped forward before Cale could answer for her. "I understand. I'm standing trial for the crime of existing. I understand your council wants me dead because you're afraid of what I represent. And I understand that you've invoked ancient law to try and force your king to watch me die." She held Rowan's gaze. "Did I miss anything?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Surprise, mostly. Omegas didn't speak to elders like that, didn't challenge, didn't show spine, but she wasn't a normal Omega. And she was done apologizing for it. Rowan's smile was thin. "You have spirit, that's good. You'll need it." He gestured to the arena. "The rules are simple. Any wolf who wishes may challenge you, one at a time. Combat continues until submission, unconsciousness, or death. If you defeat all challengers, the council will reluctantly recognize your right to exist alongside our king. And if I fall, then the problem solves itself." Rowan's voice dripped false sympathy. "Though I suspect our king will have something to say about that. Won't you, Cale?" Cale's hands clenched into fists. "If anyone kills her through treachery or dishonor, I will burn this city to the ground. And everyone in it. Challenge law is sacred. One-on-one. Fair combat. Any wolf who breaks that dies by my hand." "Of course," Rowan inclined his head mockingly. "We would never dream of violating sacred law." The lie hung in the air, obvious, blatant, and completely unprovable. "How many challengers?" Alara asked. "As many as step forward." Rowan's smile widened. "Could be 3, could be 30. Are you prepared for that, cursed one?" "No. Gods, no." But she straightened her spine and forced the words out anyway. "I'm prepared for whatever comes." "Gods. Brave." Rowan's tone made it sound like an insult. or foolish. We'll see which. He raised his voice to address the crowd. Let it be known the silver blood called Alara stands for trial by combat. Any wolf who wishes to challenge her claim to exist, step forward now. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the crowd began to move. Alara's stomach dropped as wolves started descending from the benches. Not just one or two. Not a handful. Dozens. They poured into the arena like a flood, young wolves, eager to prove themselves, older ones seeking glory, alphas who saw an easy victory against an untrained omega. They formed a line at the edge of the fighting ring, eyes gleaming with anticipation. 37 challengers, Rowan announced, clearly delighted. My. You've made quite an impression, girl. 37. Alara's training had lasted 10 hours. She'd learned basic combat, basic control, basic survival. But 37 wolves? Even if she won every fight, the exhaustion alone would kill her before she reached the end. This wasn't a trial. It was an execution with extra steps. Kale moved to her side, his presence the only thing keeping her from panicking. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. One word and we leave, together, right now. She wanted to say yes, wanted to run like every instinct screamed at her to do. But then she looked at the wolves, watching at their satisfied expressions, their certainty that she would break, that she would prove them right about cursed bloodlines being weak. And something in her hardened. I'm not running, she said. Not from this. Not from them. Not from myself. Kale's eyes blazed with gold fire, and something that looked dangerously close to love. Then I'll be right here. Every fight. Every moment. You're not alone. I know. She touched his hand just briefly, just enough. Thank you, for everything. Don't thank me yet. His voice was grim. This is just beginning. Rowan stepped forward, gesturing to the first challenger, a young male wolf. Barely past his 20th year. Eager. Confident. Probably thinking this would be easy. First challenge, Rowan declared. Marcus of the Iron Ridge Pack. Step forward. Marcus entered the ring with a cocky swagger that made Alara's teeth grind. He was tall, muscular, clearly trained. And the way he looked at her like she was already defeated, already broken. Her curse stirred. Good, she thought. Let him underestimate me, just like Kale taught. Begin. Rowan's voice cracked like a whip. Marcus lunged. Alara moved. Everything Kale had taught her came flooding back, not as conscious thought, but as pure instinct. She sidestepped Marcus's charge, let his momentum carry him past, then struck. Her clawed hand raked across his shoulder, drawing blood. Not deep enough to be fatal, but enough to hurt. Enough to prove she could. Marcus spun, shock replacing his cocky expression. You. She didn't let him finish. Didn't give him time to adjust. She moved like water, like wind, like something too quick to catch. Strike. Dodge. Counter. Her silver fire flickered along her claws, adding heat to every blow. The fight lasted 3 minutes. When it ended, Marcus lay unconscious on the blood-stained ground, his body covered in shallow cuts that glowed faintly silver at the edges. The crowd went silent. Alara stood over her first defeated opponent, breathing hard, silver light still dancing beneath her skin. She looked up at Rowan and saw the first flicker of uncertainty in his expression. Next, she said. The second challenger was harder, an experienced warrior who didn't underestimate her. The fight lasted 7 minutes, and left Alara with a gash across her ribs and a split lip, but she won. The third was brutal. A female alpha who fought with cold efficiency. Alara nearly lost that one, nearly got pinned, nearly got her throat torn out, but the silver fire surged at the last moment, burning bright enough to blind her opponent. She won by submission. 4th. 5th. 6th. They kept coming, and she kept fighting. By the 10th opponent, Alara's body was screaming. Blood, hers and theirs, covered her borrowed clothes. Her enhanced healing was working overtime, closing wounds between fights, but it couldn't keep up with the damage accumulating. She was slowing down, getting sloppy, but she didn't stop. Can't stop. Have to keep going. Have to prove. Enough. Kale's voice cut through her exhausted haze. This is madness. No wolf could survive 37 consecutive fights. You're asking the impossible. We're asking for proof, Rowan countered. If she's truly as powerful as the prophecy claims, if she's truly worthy to stand at your side, she'll survive. She's barely standing. Then perhaps she's not as strong as you believed. Rowan's smile was cruel. Perhaps the cursed one is just a girl playing at power. Perhaps Mercy would be ending this now, before she suffers more. Don't. Alara's voice came out ragged, but firm. Don't you dare speak for me. She forced herself upright, forced her legs to stop shaking, forced the silver fire to burn brighter despite her exhaustion. I'm not done. Each word was a battle. Send the next one. Cale looked like he wanted to argue, wanted to stop this madness and consequences be damned. But he'd given his word to honor challenge law, and she'd asked him to let her fight, so he stepped back, hands clenched, eyes blazing, watching. 11th, 12th, 13th. Alara lost track of the numbers, lost track of everything except survive, strike, move, breathe. The silver fire was the only thing keeping her upright now, burning through her veins, lending strength her body no longer had. By the 20th fight, she was moving on pure instinct and curse. Her conscious mind had retreated somewhere deep and safe, letting her wolf take over. The silver fire stopped being something she directed, and became something she was. She was magnificent. She was terrifying. She was everything they'd feared and more. 25th, 28th, 31st. The challengers were falling faster now. They could see what she'd become, not a girl playing at power, but power itself wearing a girl's face. The silver fire danced around her like living armor. Her eyes glowed with light that hadn't existed in the world for 3 centuries. She was Silverblood, and they should have left her ancestors alone. The 34th challenger stepped into the ring and froze. Looked at Alara standing there, covered in blood and silver light, more monster than maiden, and backed away. I withdraw my challenge, he stammered. Coward, someone shouted from the crowd. But 3 more challengers immediately followed suit, withdrew, refused to face her. That left one, the 37th challenger. Alara watched through exhausted eyes as the last wolf stepped into the ring. She was so tired, so impossibly, devastatingly tired. But she'd made it. Just one more. One more fight and she'd proven herself. One more, and she saw his face, and her world shattered. It was Garrett, the alpha who'd hunted her, who'd driven her to that cliff's edge, who'd been there when Cale first appeared. But that wasn't what made her freeze. It was the way he smiled at her, not with hatred or fear, but with triumph. Hello again, cursed one, he said quietly. Too quietly for the crowd to hear. Did you really think it would be this easy? What? The council made a deal. Garrett's voice was conversational, almost friendly. I challenge you. I make it look good. But I don't actually try to win. His smile widened. Until now. Horror crawled up Alara's spine. You threw your challengers. Made them fight me one at a time instead of overwhelming me. Made it look fair. Of course. Had to follow challenge law, after all. Had to make it look legitimate. He circled her slowly, and she saw the silver-tipped claws extending from his hands. But the law doesn't say I have to fight honorably. Doesn't say I can't use weapons designed specifically to kill Silverbloods. Silver, the one thing that bypassed her enhanced healing, that could permanently scar, kill. You're cheating, she said numbly. I'm being creative. Garrett's expression turned cold. You're an abomination, girl. A threat to everything we've built. And your pet king. He glanced at Cale. He's blinded by a bond that shouldn't exist. After you're dead, he'll see reason. He'll thank us. Cale will kill you. Maybe, Garrett shrugged. But you'll still be dead, and that's all that matters. He moved. Alara tried to dodge, tried to move like Cale had taught her, but her body wouldn't respond. Exhaustion had caught up. The silver fire flickered, dimmed. She was running on empty. Garrett's claws raked across her shoulder silver, burning through skin and muscle like acid. She screamed. The pain was unlike anything she'd felt before. Worse than the brand. Worse than 7 years of running. This was agony written into her very bones. Alara, Kale's voice, desperate and furious. She hit the ground hard, silver poison spreading through her system. Her vision swam. The curse inside her writhed, trying to heal the wound and failing. Silver was its antithesis. Its death. Garrett stood over her, silver claws gleaming. Any last words, cursed one? She should have been afraid, should have been begging. But instead, all she felt was rage. Rage at being betrayed. At the council's cowardice. At the world that had decided she didn't deserve to exist. Rage at herself for believing she could be anything other than what they'd always said. No. The voice came from somewhere deep. Not Kale's, not her own. Selenara's. You are not their shame. You are not their fear. You are fire, daughter. And fire does not beg. The silver brand on Alara's forehead blazed. Not with pain. With power. You want to see cursed? Alara's voice came out wrong, layered, ancient, echoing with the voices of every silver blood who'd ever been hunted. I'll show you cursed. She erupted. Silver fire exploded from her body, not in small bursts, not controlled. This was the full fury of 3 centuries of suppressed power. This was what happened when you cornered a silver blood and gave her no choice but to burn. Garrett screamed. The silver fire consumed him, burning away his treachery, his poison, everything he was. Within seconds, he was ash. But Alara couldn't stop. The fire spread outward, rolling across the arena floor. Wolves scrambled back, terror replacing their earlier bloodlust. The council members stumbled away from the ring, shock written across their faces. Only Kale moved forward. Into the flames, into the fury, into the heart of the inferno where Alara burned. Alara! He reached for her, his hands passing through silver fire that should have incinerated him but instead parted like water. Alara! Come back! But she was lost. Drowning in power she couldn't control, couldn't stop, couldn't. His hands cupped her face. Gold light met silver fire, fury and flame, and the world went white. When Alara could see again, she was in Kale's arms. The silver fire was gone, the arena was silent, and every wolf watching looked at her with expressions that ranged from awe to terror. What? Her voice came out hoarse. What happened? You happened. Kale's voice was thick with emotion. You showed them what a silver blood really is. What they should have remembered instead of feared. Alara looked around the arena. Scorch marks covered the ground where her fire had burned. But no one was hurt. No one except Garrett, and he'd been trying to kill her. She'd controlled it. At the end, somehow, or Kale had helped her control it. Fury and flame. Balance. Rowan stepped forward, his face ashen. The trials are complete. All challengers defeated. He swallowed hard. The council acknowledges Alara of Silverblood's right to exist. Victory. She'd won. So why did triumph taste like ash? There's more, Rowan continued, and something in his voice made Alara's stomach drop. The council has deliberated, and we've reached a decision regarding your bond. What decision? Kale's voice was dangerous. We recognize the bond exists. But we will not accept a Silverblood as our queen, not after tonight. Rowan's eyes were cold. You've proven you're too dangerous, too powerful, too much of a threat to keep close to our king. I passed your trials. You did. And you've earned your life. But not your place at our king's side. Rowan looked at Kale. Choose, Alpha King. Your throne or your mate. You cannot have both. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. They'd never intended to honor the challenge. Never intended to let her stay. They just wanted to see if she was dangerous, and now that she'd proven she was, they had their justification to cast her out. No, Kale said flatly. I reject your ultimatum. Then you reject your throne. Rowan's voice was final. Effective immediately, you are no longer Alpha King of the Northern Territories. The council will elect a new ruler, one who puts his people above his own desires. Murmurs of agreement from the other council members. This had been planned, orchestrated. They'd used the trials to force exactly this outcome. Alara looked at Kale and saw her own heartbreak reflected in his eyes. He'd lost everything. Because of her. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Don't be. His arms tightened around her. I meant what I said. I'd burn my throne to ash before I lost you. We can still fix this. I'll leave. No. The word was absolute. We leave together. Or not at all. Elder Rowan smiled thin and satisfied. How noble. How foolish. Guards escort the former king and his cursed mate from the capital. They have until dawn to be beyond our borders. After that, they are enemies of the state. Wolves move to surround them, not attacking, but herding, forcing them toward the exit. Kale and Alara walked through the silent arena, through the city that had been his home, past wolves who wouldn't meet his eyes, dethroned, exiled, hunted. Together, as they passed through the city gates into the darkness beyond, Alara felt the weight of what she'd cost him settling on her shoulders. I'm sorry, she said again. I'm not. Kale's hand found hers. They wanted me to choose, so I did. You chose wrong. No. He stopped, turned to face her. I chose you, and I'd make the same choice 1,000 times over. Behind them, the capital's gates slammed shut. Ahead, the wilderness stretched endlessly, and somewhere in the darkness, something ancient stirred, watching, waiting. Chapter 8. 3 days in the wilderness changed everything. Alara and Kale moved through the forests like ghosts, silent, swift, always watching their backs. The council had given them until dawn to leave the territory, but neither of them believed that mercy would hold. Wolves were already hunting them. She could feel it in the way the forest held its breath, in the unnatural silence that followed their footsteps. They were prey again. Both of them. This time. We can't keep running forever, Alara said on the third night, as they made camp in a cave that reminded her painfully of the old moon's shrine. Eventually, they'll corner us. And when they do, we fight. Kale was building a fire, his movements efficient despite the exhaustion written into every line of his body. He'd given up a throne, a kingdom, everything he'd fought for. And he hadn't complained once. The guilt was eating her alive. You should go back, she said quietly. Tell them you've reconsidered, that you were under the influence of the mate bond. They'd take you back, let you rule again. Kale's hands stilled. Slowly, he turned to face her, and the look in his eyes made her breath catch. Say that again, he said softly, dangerously. Kale. No. Say it again. Tell me to leave you. Tell me to go back to the wolves who tried to have you killed, who betrayed us both. His voice dropped lower. Tell me to choose a throne built on lies over the one person in this world who understands what I am. I'm trying to give you an out, she said desperately. I'm trying to save you from making a mistake. You are not a mistake. The words exploded from him with enough force that silver sparks danced through the air, her curse responding to his fury, recognizing its match. Stop trying to sacrifice yourself for me. Stop acting like you're not worth fighting for, worth keeping, worth choosing over everything else. But you lost. I lost nothing that mattered. He crossed the distance between them in 2 strides, his hands framing her face. A throne is just a chair, Alara. A title is just words. But you... His voice cracked. You're real. You're here. You're the first person in 30 years who's looked at me and seen something other than a weapon or a monster. So no, I'm not going back. Not now. Not ever. Tears burned at the back of her eyes. I don't know how to let someone choose me. I know. His thumbs brushed away the tears that spilled over. So, I'll keep choosing you until you believe it. Every day. Every moment. Until you understand that you're not alone anymore. She kissed him, then desperate and grateful, and terrified of how much she needed him. His arms came around her immediately, pulling her close, holding her like she was something precious, instead of cursed. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Kale rested his forehead against hers. We'll figure this out, he murmured. Together. We'll find somewhere safe. Build a new life. Maybe not a kingdom, but... A howl split the night. Close, too close. Kale's head snapped toward the cave entrance, every muscle in his body going taut. They found us. How many? He closed his eyes, reaching out with alpha senses that still responded despite him no longer having a pack. 10, maybe 12, moving fast. The council sent hunters. Yes. His expression hardened. And they're not coming to talk. Alara's curse stirred, responding to the threat. Silver light began to flicker beneath her skin, not the uncontrolled explosion from the arena, but focused power. Ready. Waiting. We can't keep running from this, she said quietly. Sooner or later, we have to stand and fight. Not against 12 wolves. Why not? She looked up at him, and something fierce burned in her chest. I'm a Silverblood. You're a Rage King. The prophecy said we're supposed to be powerful together. Maybe it's time we proved it. Kale studied her face for a long moment. Then slowly, his expression shifted into something wild. Something dangerous. Something that looked like hope. You want to fight back, he said. I want to stop being hunted like an animal. Her hands clenched into fists. I want to show them what happens when they corner wolves who have nothing left to lose. A smile curved Kale's lips, sharp and feral and absolutely beautiful. Then let's give them a demonstration they won't forget. The hunters arrived 10 minutes later. They came in wolf form, sleek, powerful, moving with the coordinated grace of trained killers. Alara counted 13 of them as they circled the cave entrance, their eyes glowing in the darkness. She and Kale stood at the cave mouth, side by side, watching the wolves close in. Last chance to surrender peacefully, called a voice from the darkness. A woman stepped forward, shifting back to human form, tall, scarred, radiating alpha energy. The council offers clemency if you come quietly. Kale, you can return to the capital for trial. The girl will be executed swiftly, no torture. How generous, Kale said dryly. And if we refuse, then we take you by force, and it won't be swift. The woman's eyes glowed amber. Don't make this harder than it has to be. You're outnumbered. Outmatched. There's no shame in surrendering. You're right, Alara called out, stepping forward before Kale could stop her. We are outnumbered, but you made a mistake. What mistake? You assumed that mattered. Silver fire erupted along her arms, crawling up to her shoulders, illuminating the darkness with otherworldly light. You assumed we'd fight like normal wolves, that we'd play by your rules, follow your laws. The hunters shifted uneasily. They'd seen what she did in the arena, knew what she was capable of. But we're not normal, Alara continued, her voice carrying through the forest. I'm Silverblood. He's Fury, and you just gave us a reason to stop holding back. Get them, the female alpha commanded. The hunters attacked as one, a coordinated strike meant to overwhelm through sheer numbers. It didn't work. Kale moved first, his shift happening in mid-stride, but this wasn't a normal transformation. Gold light exploded from his body, and when his wolf emerged, it was massive, twice the size of a normal alpha, with eyes that burned like molten metal, and a growl that made the earth itself tremble. This was the Rage King's true form, the form his father had feared. 3 hunters hit him simultaneously. He tore through them like they were made of paper, not killing, but incapacitating, sending them flying with blows that broke bones and shattered confidence. And Alara? She didn't shift. Not fully. Instead, she let the silver fire take over. It poured from her hands, her eyes, her very skin, liquid moonlight that responded to her will like an extension of her body. She shaped it into barriers, into weapons, into chains of light that wrapped around attacking wolves and held them immobile. This is what you feared, she said, her voice layered with the echo of ancient power. This is why you hunted us. Not because we were dangerous, but because you couldn't control us. A hunter lunged for her throat. She caught him mid-leap with a whip of silver fire, slamming him into the ground. He didn't get back up. Kale and Alara moved in perfect synchronization, like they'd been fighting together for years instead of days. When he drove attackers toward her, she caught them with silver fire. When she was pressed, he was there, a wall of golden fury that nothing could breach. Fury and flame, just like the prophecy said. The battle lasted less than 5 minutes. When it ended, 12 hunters lay scattered across the clearing, alive but defeated, their bodies marked with silver burns and the evidence of Kale's rage. Only the female alpha still stood, her expression a mixture of shock and terror. "What are you?" she whispered. "We're what you made us," Alara said quietly. "You wanted monsters? You hunted us, branded us, tried to kill us for existing?" The silver fire pulsed brighter. "Congratulations, you created exactly what you feared. The council will send more. Let them." Kale's voice rumbled like thunder. "Let them send armies. We're done running. Done hiding. Done pretending we're less than we are." The female alpha backed away, terror written across her face. "You'll start a war?" "No." Kale's smile was sharp. "Your council started this war 3 centuries ago when they slaughtered the Silverbloods, when they branded anyone different as abominations, when they taught fear instead of understanding." His eyes blazed. "We're just finishing it." The alpha fled, shifted mid-stride and ran, leaving her wounded hunters behind. Alara watched her go, then turned to Kale. The battle high was already fading, replaced by the weight of what they'd just done. "We really did it," she breathed. "We fought back. We did." Kale shifted back to human form, his body still radiating power. "And we won. Together. So what now?" Before he could answer, the ground began to tremble. Not an earthquake. Something else. Something that made the silver fire leap in Alara's veins and Kale's wolf surge to the surface again. The old moon's shrine had felt like this. Ancient, powerful, watching. "Do you feel that?" Alara whispered. "Yes." Kale moved to stand beside her, his hand finding hers. "Something's coming." The trembling intensified. Trees swayed despite no wind. And in the distance, something glowed, silver light rising from the earth itself. "The prophecy," Alara said suddenly, understanding flooding through her. This was the tipping point. This was what we needed to do. Fight back? Claim our power. She looked at him, eyes wide. "The old moon has been waiting, for centuries. Waiting for 2 wolves strong enough to accept what they were. To stop running, to stand together and fight." The silver light grew brighter, closer. And then, the ground beneath them began to glow. Symbols the same ones from the old moon's shrine were appearing in the earth, spreading outward in spiraling patterns that surrounded them completely. And at the center, right where Alara and Kale stood, the light intensified until it was almost blinding. "What's happening?" Kale's grip on her hand tightened. "I think..." Alara's voice caught as power surged through her, ancient and vast and absolutely certain. "I think the old moon is answering." The light exploded upward, engulfing them both, and suddenly, they weren't in the forest anymore. They stood in the same impossible place, from Alara's vision, the ancient forest where the moon sang, but this time, they weren't alone. Hundreds of figures surrounded them, some solid, some translucent like ghosts, wolves from every era, every pack, every bloodline. And at the center stood Selenara and Malachi, first of the Silverbloods and first of the Rage Kings. "You've done it," Selenara said, her voice filled with pride. "You've claimed your power. Both of you." "What is this?" Alara breathed. "Where are we?" "The space between," Malachi answered. His voice was deep, rumbling like Kale's but layered with centuries of wisdom. "The place where the old moon still lives, where it watches, waits, judges. Judges? Kale's eyes narrowed. "Are we on trial?" "No." Selenara smiled. "You're being offered a choice." She gestured, and the scene around them shifted. Alara saw flashes of possible futures, her and Kale living quietly in the wilderness, always hunted. Saw them dying in another ambush. Saw them growing old together, but always looking over their shoulders. Then the vision changed. She saw them standing on a battlefield. Saw wolves gathering behind them not to attack, but to follow. Saw territories united. Saw the old laws being rewritten. Saw a world where bloodlines didn't determine worth, where power wasn't feared but respected. Saw herself wearing a crown of silver fire. Saw Kale beside her, golden light blazing. Saw them not as exiles, but as rulers of something new. "The old moon offers you this," Malachi said. "Your ancestors' power, their knowledge, their blessing, not to hide, not to run, but to rebuild what was broken, to unite the territories under true balance, Fury and flame, ruling as equals. You want us to start a revolution, Alara said slowly. We want you to finish what we started 3 centuries ago. Selenara's expression was fierce. The packs are fractured, weak, divided by fear and old grudges, but you together you're strong enough to unite them, to remind them what we were supposed to be. And if we refuse? Kale asked. Then you live as exiles, hunted, always running. Malachi's gaze was steady. There's no shame in that choice. Survival is its own victory, but the world stays broken. Alara finished. Yes. Silence stretched between them. This was it, the choice that mattered, not just for them, but for every wolf alive. Live quietly, or fight for change. Hide their power, or wield it. Run, or stand. Alara looked at Kale. He was already watching her, gold eyes steady. What do you want? He asked quietly. She thought about the 7 years she'd spent running, about the brand on her forehead that marked her as cursed, about the little girl whose arm she'd accidentally burned, and the hunters who'd chased her to a cliff's edge. She thought about every wolf who'd ever been cast out for being different, for being too much, too powerful, too broken to be loved. And she thought about Kale, who'd given up everything for her, who'd chosen her over his throne, who'd shown her that being powerful didn't make you a monster. I want to stop running, she said. I want to fight back. I want to build a world where wolves like us aren't hunted for existing. She turned to face Selenara and Malachi. I want to finish what you started, even knowing what it will cost? Selenara asked gently. This path leads to war, child. Blood will be spilled, lives will be lost. You'll be hated by many before you're loved by any. I've been hated my whole life, Alara said. At least this time, it will be for something that matters. Selenara smiled, proud and sad and fierce all at once. Then she looked at Kale. And you, Rage King? Will you stand with her? Even knowing your own people will call you traitor? Knowing you can never go back to who you were? Kale didn't hesitate. I stopped being their king the moment they demanded I choose between my throne and my mate. Now, I'll be something else. His hand found Alara's, fingers lacing through hers. Her king, her partner, her equal. Then kneel, Malachi commanded. Both of you, and accept the old moon's blessing. They knelt together, 2 broken souls who'd found strength in each other. The ancient wolves surrounded them, placing translucent hands on their shoulders, and Selenara and Malachi stepped forward, each carrying a crown made of pure light. Alara of silver blood, Selenara intoned. Do you accept the power of your ancestors, the responsibility of your bloodline, the duty to lead with fire and mercy combined? I do, Alara whispered. The silver crown descended, and the moment it touched her head, power flooded through her. Not painful, not overwhelming, but vast, ancient, absolute. She felt every silver blood who'd ever lived, lending her their strength, their knowledge, their fierce determination. Kale of the Rage Kings, Malachi said. Do you accept the fury of your ancestors? The responsibility of your bloodline? The duty to lead with strength and compassion combined? I do. The golden crown settled on Kale's head, and gold light exploded from him, matching the silver pouring from Alara. The 2 lights twined together, spiraling upward toward the impossible moon above. Rise, Selenara and Malachi said in unison. Rise, Alpha King and Queen of the New Moon. Rise and reclaim what was stolen. Rise and rebuild what was broken. Rise and show them what happens when fury and flame unite. Alara and Kale stood together, power thrumming through their joined hands. One question, Alara said. How do we start a revolution with just the 2 of us? Selenara's smile was knowing. You won't be alone for long. Those who are different, those who are cast out, those who are called too dangerous to exist. Her eyes gleamed. They're waiting. They've been waiting for someone strong enough to lead them, to show them a better way. Find them, Malachi added. Unite them. Build an army not of conquest, but of acceptance, of power wielded with purpose. The vision began to fade. The ancient forest, the impossible moon, the gathered ancestors. But before they disappeared completely, Selenara spoke one last time. The council thinks they've won by casting you out. They think they've made you weak. Her smile turned sharp. Show them how wrong they are. Show them what happens when you give the broken ones a reason to fight back. Show them fire. Alara and Kale snapped back to reality. They stood in the same clearing where they'd defeated the hunters. But everything was different now. The crowns were gone, or rather, they'd become part of them. Silver light still danced along Alara's skin, but controlled now, purposeful, and Kale's eyes burned with gold fire that promised both protection and destruction. They looked at each other, and understanding passed between them without words. They weren't prey anymore. They were predators, and they were coming for the wolves who'd hunted them. So, Kale said, his voice carrying new authority, where do we start? Alara smiled, fierce and beautiful and absolutely unbreakable. We start by going back, she said. Not to hide, not to beg, but to take back what's ours. The capital, the capital. Her eyes blazed silver. The council wanted a war? They're about to get one, but not the war they expected. What kind of war then? The kind where the outcasts stop running. She looked at him, and the love and fury burning in her gaze made his breath catch. The kind where the broken rise up and demand to be seen, to be heard, to be chosen. A revolution, Kale breathed. A reckoning. Alara's hand found his, and where they touched, silver and gold light twined together. Are you with me? Always. His smile was sharp and wild and completely devastating. Let's show them what happens when fury and flame stop playing nice. In the distance, wolves howled, but this time, Alara and Kale didn't run. They howled back. A challenge, a promise, a declaration of war. The old moon watched from beyond the veil and smiled. Its champions had finally risen, and the world would never be the same. Chapter 9. Word spread like wildfire. The exiled Alpha King and his cursed mate weren't hiding anymore. They were coming back. And they weren't coming alone. It started with whispers in the dark corners of territory borders. Rumors passed between rogues and outcasts. Stories told around fires by wolves who'd been cast out for being different. Too weak, too strong, too broken to belong. They're gathering an army. The silver blood still lives. The Fury King chose her over his throne. They're coming for the council. And with each whisper, something stirred. Something that had been dormant for centuries. Hope. Alara felt it as they traveled, not running anymore, but moving with purpose. Every territory they passed through, more wolves emerged from the shadows. Omegas who'd been abused, alphas who'd been cast out for challenging corrupt leaders, betas whose gifts were considered too strange, too other, too much, the broken ones, the forgotten ones, the ones the packs had decided weren't worth keeping. They came to Alara and Kale like pilgrims to a shrine, eyes wide with desperate hope and fear, and the tentative belief that maybe, just maybe, someone finally saw them. You're really doing this? Asked a young woman on the second day, barely 20, with scars across her face and eyes that had seen too much violence. You're really going to challenge the council? Yes, Alara said simply. They'll kill you. They have armies, resources, the backing of every major pack. Maybe. Alara met her gaze steadily. But we're not going alone, and we're not going to beg them to accept us. Then what are you going to do? Take back what they stole. Kale's voice carried across the small camp they'd made, not through violence, not through conquest, but through choice. We're offering every wolf in every territory the same choice we were given. Keep living under laws written by fear, or build something new, something better. A new pack? Someone asked. Not a pack, Alara corrected. A coalition. Territories united not through dominance, but through respect. Where power isn't feared but celebrated. Where being different isn't a death sentence. That's impossible, the scarred woman whispered. Wolves don't work that way. We're hierarchical, territorial. We need structure. Then we'll build new structure. Kale's eyes blazed gold. I spent 10 years ruling through fear and fury. I know what that kind of leadership creates: obedience, yes, but also resentment, rebellion, wolves who follow because they're too afraid not to. He looked at Alara, and something soft entered his expression. But she showed me another way. Lead through strength, yes. But also through understanding. Through seeing wolves as they are. Not what we want them to be. You sound like a dreamer, someone muttered. Good, Alara said. The world was built by dreamers, by wolves brave enough to imagine something different. She stood, letting the silver fire flicker along her arms, controlled now, beautiful instead of terrifying. I spent 7 years believing I was a monster, that my power made me too dangerous to exist. And you know what I learned? She looked around at the gathered outcasts, 20 of them now, all watching with eyes that held the same pain she'd carried for so long. I learned that the wolves who called me monster were the ones afraid of their own weakness. That power doesn't corrupt, fear does. And that being different isn't a curse. Her voice strengthened. It's a gift. One we've been taught to hide, to suppress, to apologize for. I'm done apologizing, she continued. Done hiding. Done pretending I'm less than I am so others can feel safe. The silver fire burned brighter. If that makes me a monster, fine. I'll be a monster. But I'll be a monster who fights for every wolf the packs threw away, who builds a place where different means powerful instead of dangerous. Silence. Then the scarred woman stepped forward. I'm in. You don't know what you're agreeing to, Kale warned. This won't be easy. The council will fight back. There will be blood. There's already been blood. The woman's voice was hard. Mine. Theirs. Every outcast who's ever been hunted for not fitting into neat little boxes. She looked at Alara. At least this time, we get to fight back. One by one, the others stepped forward. An omega male who'd been cast out for being too aggressive. A beta female whose psychic gifts made other wolves uncomfortable. An alpha who'd refused to kill his own son when the boy showed signs of weakness. 20 broken souls who'd found each other in the darkness. 20 wolves who'd been told they didn't deserve to exist. 20 voices saying, we choose this. We choose you. We choose to fight. By the end of the week, there were 50. By the end of 2 weeks, 100. Rogues and outcasts from every territory. Wolves who'd heard the stories and came to see if they were true. If the Silverblood and the Fury King were really building something new. If hope was real. Alara stood on a hill overlooking their camp, a sprawling collection of tents and fires that grew larger every day, and felt the weight of what they were building. Having second thoughts? Kale's voice came from behind her, his warmth a familiar comfort. About 100 of them. She leaned back against his chest when he wrapped his arms around her. We're asking these wolves to risk everything, Kale. Their lives, their safety, everything they have left. We're asking them to choose, he corrected gently. There's a difference. Is there, when the only other option is to keep living in hiding? Yes. He turned her to face him, his hands framing her face. Because we're not forcing them. We're not manipulating them. We're offering them something they've never had before, a chance to belong exactly as they are. To be seen. To matter. And if we fail? If the council crushes us before we even reach the capital? Then we fail knowing we tried. His eyes held hers. But Alara, look at them. Really look. She turned back to the camp. Saw wolves laughing around, fires, genuine laughter, not the forced kind that came from fear. Saw an omega teaching combat to a beta. Saw an alpha helping a rogue set up their tent. Saw cooperation instead of hierarchy, respect instead of dominance. Saw a glimpse of what the world could be. They're not just following us, Kale said quietly. They're following an idea, a dream. And even if we fall, even if the council destroys us, that dream doesn't die. It spreads. It grows. It becomes something bigger than any one wolf. You really believe that? I have to. His smile was wry. Otherwise, I threw away my throne for nothing. She laughed despite herself. No pressure then. None at all. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. Just the fate of every outcast in every territory resting on our shoulders. Kale? Yes? Thank you. She looked up at him, letting him see everything she felt, the fear, the hope, the love that had grown between them faster than should have been possible. For choosing me, for believing in this. For showing me that being powerful doesn't make me a monster. You showed yourself that, he said softly. I just held up a mirror. Before she could respond, a commotion erupted at the edge of camp. Alara's curse flared instinctively, silver fire leaping to her fingertips. Kale moved in front of her, gold light already blazing in his eyes. But it wasn't an attack. It was wolves. Dozens of them, emerging from the forest with their hands raised in peace. And at their front, Alara's breath caught. Her mother, her father, the wolves who'd renounced her 7 years ago, who'd chosen their pack over their daughter, who'd told her she was too broken to love. They stood at the edge of the firelight, looking small and uncertain, and nothing like the powerful adults from her memories. Alara, her mother said, voice trembling. May we approach? Every instinct screamed at her to say no, to turn away, to make them feel even a fraction of the abandonment she'd carried for 7 years. But Kale's hand found hers, squeezing gently, not telling her what to do, just reminding her she wasn't alone. She could choose mercy, or justice, or something in between. Why are you here? Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Because we were wrong. Her father stepped forward, and she saw tears on his face. We were wrong to cast you out, wrong to believe the elders, wrong to choose fear over love. You're 7 years too late. We know, her mother's voice broke. We know, and we'll carry that shame forever. But Alara, we heard what you're doing, what you're building, and we... She swallowed hard. We want to help, if you'll let us. Why? The question came out harsh. Why now? Why after all this time? Because you were right, her father said quietly. The packs are broken, run by fear and old prejudice, and we've spent 7 years watching wolves like you, different, powerful, beautiful, being hunted and killed for no reason except that the elders were afraid. His eyes met hers. We can't undo what we did to you, but maybe we can help ensure no other parent makes the same mistake. Alara stared at them, these wolves who'd given her life, then taken away her home. Part of her wanted to reject them, to make them hurt the way she'd hurt. But a larger part remembered Kale's words. Lead through understanding. See wolves as they are, not what we want them to be. Her parents were flawed, had made terrible choices. But they were here now. Trying. That had to count for something. You can stay, she said finally. But not as my parents, not yet. That's something you'll have to earn back. We understand. Her mother's relief was palpable. Thank you. Thank you for giving us a chance we don't deserve. As her parents moved into the camp, joining the other outcasts, Kale leaned close. That was brave. That was terrifying, she corrected. Same thing, usually. More wolves kept coming. By the next morning, their numbers had swelled to nearly 200. And with each new arrival came stories of abuse, of exile, of being cast out for being different, of surviving despite the world telling them they shouldn't exist. They came for hope. They came for change. They came because 2 wolves had stood up and said, enough. On the 15th day, a scout returned from the capital with news. The council knows you're coming, she reported. They're preparing defenses, calling in allied packs. They're treating this like an invasion. Maybe it is, someone muttered. No. Alara's voice cut through the murmurs. We're not invading. We're returning. There's a difference. They won't see it that way. Then we'll make them see. She looked around at her assembled coalition, 200 strong now, and growing every day. We're not going to storm the capital. We're not going to attack. We're going to walk through the gates with our heads held high and demand to be heard. They'll slaughter us, someone protested. Maybe, Kale said. Or maybe they'll listen. Maybe they'll see 200 wolves standing united, different bloodlines, different territories, different gifts all working together, and realize the old way is already dead. His eyes blazed. The world is changing whether they want it to or not. We're just accelerating the process. And if they refuse to listen? The scarred woman whose name was Mira, Alara had learned, asked. If they attack anyway? Alara and Kale exchanged a look. They'd talked about this. Planned for it. Hoped it wouldn't come to violence, but prepared for the possibility. Then we show them what happens when you corner 200 wolves who have nothing left to lose, Alara said quietly. We show them fire, and fury, and power that refuses to be suppressed anymore. We fight, we defend. Kale's correction was important. There's a difference. We don't strike first. We don't become the monsters they say we are. But if they attack, his smile was sharp, then yes, we fight back, and we show them exactly why our bloodlines were feared. A cheer went up from the assembled wolves, not bloodthirsty, not cruel, but determined, ready. They were an army now, not of conquest, but of liberation, of outcasts who'd found family, of broken wolves who'd chosen to stand. That night, as Alara lay in Kale's arms beneath stars that had witnessed centuries of wolf history, she thought about everything that had led them here. Do you think we can actually do this? She whispered. Change the world? I think we already have, Kale murmured against her hair. Look at what we've built. 200 wolves who would have died alone, finding strength in each other, finding hope. That's already a revolution. But the council is afraid, and fear makes wolves do desperate things. He tightened his arms around her. But we have something they don't. What? Each other. He pressed a kiss to her temple. Fury and flame. Balance, the thing the prophecy promised, and the old laws tried to prevent. His voice dropped to something fierce and tender. Whatever happens when we reach that capital, whether they welcome us or try to kill us, we face it together. And that makes us unstoppable. Alara wanted to believe him, wanted to have his certainty, his faith. But tomorrow they marched on the capital. Tomorrow they faced the council that had tried to destroy them. Tomorrow, everything they'd built would be tested. Kale? Yes, love. If we die tomorrow, we won't. But if we do, she insisted. I need you to know I don't regret this. Any of it. Not the running, not the trials, not the exile. Because it all led me to you. He pulled back to look at her, gold eyes blazing in the darkness. We're not dying tomorrow, or the day after, or any day soon. His hand cupped her face. Because I haven't had nearly enough time to love you yet, and I plan on spending the next several decades making up for it. She kissed him, then soft and desperate, and full of everything she couldn't put into words. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Alara rested her forehead against his. Together? She whispered. Always. The march to the capital began at dawn. 200 wolves moving as one, not an army, but a declaration. They carried no weapons, wore no armor, just walked with heads held high, silver and gold light flickering at the front, where Alara and Kale led the way. Word spread faster than they moved. By the time they were halfway to the capital, wolves lined the roads to watch. Some jeered, some threw stones, some looked away in fear or shame. But some, and this was what gave Alara hope, some watched with expressions of wonder, of recognition, of seeing something they'd only dreamed about. Change. The capital gates came into view as the sun reached its peak, and there, standing before the closed iron doors, was the council. All 7 of them, plus guards, plus allied alphas from neighboring territories, hundreds of wolves, blocking their path. Elder Rowan stepped forward, his voice carrying across the distance. You were given exile, former king. You were granted mercy, and you repay that kindness by raising an army? Not an army, Kale called back. A coalition, wolves from every territory who are tired of being cast out for being different. Rogues and outcasts, Rowan sneered. The dregs of society. You think you can threaten us with numbers? We're not here to threaten. Alara's voice rang clear. We're here to offer a choice. What choice? What choice? The same choice you should have offered from the beginning. She stepped forward, letting silver fire dance along her skin, beautiful, controlled, purposeful. Accept that power comes in different forms, that wolves can be strong without fitting into neat little hierarchies, that being different isn't the same as being dangerous. And if we refuse, then you prove that the old laws are based on fear instead of wisdom. Kale moved beside her. And we'll go somewhere else. Build our coalition in neutral territory. Offer sanctuary to every wolf your territories cast out. Eventually, you'll have no one left, but the ones too afraid to imagine something better. It was a bluff. Mostly. They had nowhere near enough resources to build an independent territory yet. But the council didn't need to know that. Rowan's expression flickered uncertainty, anger, fear all warring across his face. You expect us to just… What? Welcome you back? Pretend the last 3 weeks didn't happen? No, Alara said. We expect you to listen, to consider that maybe, just maybe, the prophecy wasn't a warning. Maybe it was a promise, that fury and flame together could unite instead of destroy, could heal instead of harm. She looked past the council to the wolves watching from the city walls. Hundreds of eyes locked on this confrontation. I was branded cursed because of my bloodline, she called out, letting her voice carry. Hunted, nearly killed. All because I was born different, born powerful, born silver instead of gold. Her brand glowed, and she didn't hide it anymore. How many of you have secrets? Gifts you hide? Power you suppress because you're afraid of being cast out? Silence. But she saw it in their eyes, recognition, understanding. We're not here to overthrow your council, she continued. We're here to show you there's another way. A better way. Where strength is celebrated instead of feared. Where different means valuable instead of dangerous. Pretty words, Rowan said coldly. But words don't change reality, don't they? Kale challenged. Every revolution starts with words, with ideas, with wolves brave enough to say, no more. His eyes blazed. We're saying it now. No more exile for being different. No more hunting wolves for gifts they didn't choose. No more believing that power equals corruption. And what would you have us do? Another council member demanded. Just change laws that have stood for centuries? Yes, Alara said simply. Because those laws are wrong, and keeping them just because they're old doesn't make them right. She could feel the moment trembling on a knife's edge, could feel the assembled wolves waiting, watching, wondering which way this would fall. Then a voice called from the walls, I'm with them. Another. They're right. The old laws are broken. More voices joining in, not a roar, but a murmur. Growing. Spreading. Wolves who'd been silent for so long finding their voices. Rowan's face went pale. He'd thought the people would support him, would choose safety over change. But fear was a fragile foundation, and hope, even dangerous hope, was stronger. This isn't over, Rowan said, his voice tight. You want to challenge the old laws? Fine, but you do it properly. Through council debate, through votes, through the political process. Not through, he gestured at the coalition, whatever this is. This, Alara said, is democracy. Wolves having a voice, having a choice. Then let's vote. Mira's voice came from behind Alara, strong, certain. Right now, every wolf in the capital, does the council speak for them? Or do Alara and Kale? That's not, Rowan started. Scared of the answer? Kale's challenge was sharp. Afraid your people might choose differently given the option? The crowd's murmur grew louder. They wanted this. Wanted a voice, a choice. Rowan looked at his fellow council members, saw the same uncertainty reflected in their faces. They were trapped. If they refused, they proved Alara and Kale right, that the old ways were based on control, not consent. If they agreed, they might lose. Fine, Rowan said finally. A vote. But not now. In 3 days, that gives both sides time to make their case, to let the people decide who they want to lead them. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Agreed, Kale said. The gates opened, and for the first time in 3 weeks, Alara and Kale walked back into the capital, not as exiles, not as criminals, but as challengers, as revolutionaries, as wolves who refused to be broken. The crowd parted for them, some in respect, some in fear, some still uncertain, but they parted. And as Alara walked through those streets, she felt something shift, something fundamental and irreversible. The world was changing, and they were at the center of it. Dear viewer, let me ask you something. Would you have chosen her side? Would you have stood with the cursed Omega and the fallen king? Or would you have stayed behind the safety of the old laws, believing that different equals dangerous? Because that's the question at the heart of this story, isn't it? Whether we choose fear or hope. Whether we build walls or bridges. Whether we cast out the different ones or celebrate them. Alara spent 7 years believing she was a monster, that her power made her too dangerous to love. And maybe you know that feeling. Maybe you've felt too much. Too different. Too broken to belong. But here's what she learned. Being different isn't a curse. It's a gift. And power. Real power comes not from suppressing who you are, but from claiming it, owning it, standing in it, even when the world tells you to hide. So I'll ask again, would you choose her side? Would you fight for the outcasts, the forgotten, the ones the world decided weren't worth keeping? Or would you stay safe behind walls that were built on fear? Think about it. And while you're thinking, if this story lit something inside you, if it made you feel seen, if it reminded you that being broken doesn't mean being unworthy, subscribe to Clarissa Romance Collections. Because here, we tell tales that burn, stories about souls who refuse to be tamed, about love that defies every rule, about power that won't be suppressed. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, because Alara and Kale's story isn't over yet. In 3 days, the Capitol votes, and the world will either change or burn. Chapter 10. The 3 days before the vote felt like holding your breath underwater. Alara and Kale had been given chambers in the keep, not their old rooms, but smaller quarters on the eastern wing. A gesture that said, "You're tolerated, not welcomed." Guards stood outside their door at all times. Not for protection. For surveillance. The council was watching, waiting, looking for any excuse to revoke the vote before it happened. They're scared. Kale observed on the second night as he stood at the window, looking out over the Capitol. Good. Fear means they know they might lose. Fear also makes people desperate. Alara joined him at the window, her hand finding his. What if they try something? Sabotage the vote? Claim we've used silver fire to manipulate people? Then we prove them wrong. His fingers laced through hers. We've spent 3 days walking through the city, talking to wolves, listening to their stories, offering nothing but truth and choice. He turned to face her. If they still choose the council after that, then maybe this territory isn't ready for change. And if they choose us, then we rebuild. His smile was soft. Together, like we've done everything else. A knock at the door interrupted them. Kale tensed, gold light already flickering in his eyes. But it was just Mira. "They're gathering," she said without preamble. "The entire city, every wolf. The square is already packed, and the vote isn't for another hour." Alara's stomach twisted with nerves. "That's good, right? It's something." Mira's expression was unreadable. "But Alara, you need to prepare yourself. Half these wolves have spent their entire lives being taught that silverbloods are abominations, that power like yours is dangerous. 3 days of talking might not be enough to undo centuries of fear." "I know. Do you?" Mira stepped closer, her scarred face serious. "Because if you lose this vote, if the council wins, we don't have a backup plan. No territory to retreat to, no resources to build something new. We'll be right back where we started. Except now, everyone knows our faces. Everyone knows we challenged the council. They'll hunt us to the ends of the earth. Then we better win," Kale said flatly. "And if we don't, then we do what we've always done." Alara straightened her spine, forcing confidence into her voice. "We survive, we adapt, we find another way." Mira studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "You've changed. 3 weeks ago, you were running from your own shadow. Now you're ready to face an entire city. 3 weeks ago, I was alone." Alara glanced at Kale. "Now I'm not." "No," Mira agreed. "You're not. None of us are anymore. That's what you gave us, what you showed us." Her voice softened. "Whatever happens out there, thank you for that." She left before Alara could respond. Kale pulled Alara against his chest, his arms wrapping around her from behind. "She's right, you know. You have changed. So have you." "Yes." His breath was warm against her ear. "But you changed me, showed me that rage doesn't have to define me, That power can protect instead of destroy. That being broken doesn't mean being unworthy of love. Alara turned in his arms to face him. Kale, whatever happens out there, he interrupted gently. I want you to know something. These last 3 weeks fighting beside you, building this coalition, watching you claim your power, they've been the best weeks of my life. I spent 30 years as a king, but I only started living the night I met you. Don't. Tears burned at the back of her eyes. Don't say goodbye. We're going to win this. I know. He cupped her face, thumbs brushing away the tears that spilled over. But I needed to say it anyway. Needed you to know that even if the world ends tomorrow, even if we lose everything, I don't regret a single moment. You are the best choice I've ever made. She kissed him, then desperate and fierce, and full of everything she couldn't put into words. And when they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Alara pressed her forehead to his. Together, she whispered. Always. The square was packed. Thousands of wolves filled every available space, perched on rooftops, crowded into windows, spilling out into the surrounding streets. Alara had never seen so many gathered in one place. The sheer magnitude of it made her breath catch. These were the wolves whose future they were fighting for. A platform had been erected in the center, raised high enough that the entire crowd could see. The council sat on one side, 7 stern faces radiating disapproval. On the other side, 2 empty chairs waited for Alara and Kale. As they climbed the platform, the crowd's murmur rose to a roar. Some cheered, some jeered. Most just watched, silent, assessing, waiting to see what would happen. Elder Rowan stood at the center, his voice magically amplified to reach the farthest edges of the square. People of the Northern Territories, we are gathered here to decide the future of our pack, our laws, our way of life. He gestured to Alara and Kale. These 2 claim the old ways are broken, that our laws, which have protected us for centuries, must be changed. They offer a new vision, a coalition of outcasts and rogues, a world where bloodline doesn't determine worth. His tone made it sound ridiculous, dangerous. But ask yourselves, Rowan continued, do we trust 300 years of tradition, or do we gamble everything on the promises of 2 wolves who've been exiled for barely a month? Do we maintain order, or descend into chaos? The crowd murmured, uncertain, swaying. Then Rowan looked directly at Alara. The Silverblood will speak first. Let's hear what the Cursed One has to say. The challenge was clear. Convince them, or lose everything. Alara stood, and the crowd went silent. She looked out at thousands of faces, young and old, Alpha and Omega, wolves from every walk of life, and felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her shoulders. What do I say? How do I make them understand? Then she saw her parents in the crowd. Saw Mira standing tall despite her scars. Saw the coalition wolves scattered throughout 200 souls who'd already chosen to believe. And she knew. She didn't need to convince everyone. Just enough. Just the ones who were ready to hear. My name is Alara, she began, her voice carrying across the square. 7 years ago, I was cast out of my pack for being different, for having power I didn't ask for and couldn't control. They branded me cursed, told me I was too dangerous to exist, and I believed them. She paused, letting the words settle. I spent 7 years running, hiding, apologizing for being alive. Every time I used my power, even to defend myself, I felt shame, guilt, like I was proving them right, like I really was the monster they said I was. Her hand went to the silver brand on her forehead. But I learned something these last 3 weeks. Something important. Her eyes found Kale's across the platform, drew strength from his steady gaze. Being powerful doesn't make you a monster. Being different doesn't make you dangerous. And being cast out doesn't make you unworthy. It just means you're surrounded by wolves too afraid to understand you. A ripple went through the crowd, recognition perhaps. Or anger. She couldn't tell yet. The council calls me cursed, Alara continued. But what is a curse really? Is it power that doesn't fit neatly into their hierarchy? Is it strength that can't be controlled through fear? Is it simply being born different from what they expected? She let silver fire dance along her hands. Controlled, beautiful, purposeful. I am Silverblood. My ancestors were hunted to extinction because they were too powerful, too free, too unwilling to bow to anyone's authority but their own. The council says they were dangerous. I say they were afraid. Afraid of wolves who couldn't be dominated, who wouldn't play by rules designed to keep them weak, who dared to believe they deserved better than scraps and submission. Her voice rose, carrying to the farthest edges of the square. How many of you have gifts you hide, powers you suppress, dreams you abandon because the pack told you they were wrong? How many of you have watched your children, your friends, your loved ones cast out for being different? Silence. But she saw it in their eyes, understanding. Recognition. Pain. The old laws say power must be feared, must be controlled, must be suppressed unless it serves the pack's interests. Alara shook her head. But I say power is just power. It's what you do with it that matters. And I've spent 3 weeks building a coalition of wolves. The packs threw away omegas and alphas, betas and rogues, every bloodline and gift imaginable, all working together, all choosing cooperation over domination. We haven't torn each other apart. We haven't descended into chaos. We've built something beautiful, something strong, something that proves the old ways wrong. She looked directly at Elder Rowan. You're right to be afraid of us, not because we're dangerous, but because we're proof that your entire system is based on a lie. That wolves don't need hierarchies built on fear to survive. That power can be celebrated instead of suppressed. That different is valuable, not dangerous. So yes, I'm cursed, but not by my bloodline. Her eyes swept the crowd. I'm cursed by living in a world that taught me to hate myself for being strong, and I'm done accepting that curse. I'm done apologizing for existing. I'm done pretending I'm less than I am. What? The silver fire blazed brighter. I am Silverblood. I am powerful. I am different. And I am not sorry. The crowd erupted, some in anger, some in support, all of them stirred by her words. Rowan stepped forward, his face red with fury. Pretty speech, but it doesn't change reality. You are dangerous. You killed a wolf in the arena. Who is trying to kill me with silver claws in violation of challenge law? Alara shot back. I defended myself. That's not murder. That's survival. You're unstable. I'm untrained. There's a difference. She held his gaze. The Silverbloods were hunted before they could teach their children, before they could build schools, traditions, ways of controlling their power. You created the very problem you claim to fear by killing everyone who could have helped. Rowan opened his mouth to respond, but Kale stood. My turn, he said quietly. The crowd went silent again. Kale looked out at the wolves he'd ruled for 10 years, and something like regret flickered across his face. I was your king. I took the throne through blood and fury, ruled through fear and domination, and for 10 years, I told myself that was strength. That was leadership. I was wrong. The admission shocked the crowd into absolute silence. I was a king who demanded obedience instead of earning respect, who saw submission as strength and compassion as weakness, who became exactly what my father feared, a monster who ruled through rage. His eyes found Alara. Then I met her, this cursed Omega who'd spent 7 years running from her own power, and she showed me something I'd forgotten, that real strength isn't about dominating others. It's about choosing mercy when you could choose violence, choosing understanding when you could choose judgment, choosing love when the world tells you to hate. Gold light began to glow around him, his own power, his own curse, fully displayed. I am Rage King, born with fury so intense my own father tried to kill me, raised to believe my anger made me a monster, taught that my power was something to fear, not celebrate. His voice dropped. But she didn't fear me. She saw my rage and called it strength, saw my broken places and called them beautiful, saw the monster everyone warned her about and chose to stand beside him anyway. He looked back at the crowd. The council says the old ways keep us safe. But safe from what? From change? From progress? From wolves who dare to be different? He shook his head. I spent 10 years keeping you safe by keeping you afraid, by casting out anyone who didn't fit, anyone who challenged the hierarchy, anyone who dared to be more than their rank allowed. I'm done with that too. I gave up my throne because I realized something: ruling through fear isn't strength, it's cowardice. Real leadership means accepting that your people are more than their ranks, more than their bloodlines, more than whatever neat little boxes you try to force them into. His hand found Alara's. Vote for the council if you want safety built on fear, if you want laws that haven't changed in centuries, if you want a world where different means dangerous and power means corrupt, but vote for us if you're ready for something better. If you believe wolves can cooperate instead of dominate. If you think maybe, just maybe, the outcasts have something valuable to offer. Vote for us if you're tired of being afraid. The crowd was absolutely silent now, thousands of wolves hanging on every word. Then Elder Rowan stepped forward one final time. "Inspiring speeches," he said coldly. "But words don't change reality. You offer pretty dreams and promises of equality. But what happens when your coalition fractures? When alphas demand dominance? When power struggles tear your idealistic vision apart? What happens," Alara said quietly, "is we work through it. Together, like adults. Like wolves who respect each other enough to communicate instead of dominate. That's naive." "No," Kale's voice was firm. "That's hope, and you fear it because hope is harder to control than fear." Rowan opened his mouth to argue, but a voice called from the crowd. "Vote, let us vote." Others joined in. "We've heard enough. Time to choose." The council looked at each other, uncertainty written across their faces. This wasn't going as planned. The crowd wasn't automatically siding with tradition. They were thinking, considering, choosing. "Very well," Rowan said tightly. "All those in favor of maintaining the current council and laws, raise your claws." Hundreds of claws went up, maybe half the crowd. It was impossible to count exactly. "All those in favor of the coalition." He said the word like it tasted bitter. "Raise your claws." A heartbeat of hesitation. Then, claws began to rise. Slowly at first, then faster. More and more wolves choosing the outcasts over the establishment. Choosing hope over fear. Choosing change over safety. Alara's breath caught as she watched. Was it enough? Were there more? Could they actually? "The count is close," Rowan announced, his voice strained. "We'll need an official tally." It took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of agonizing waiting while council members moved through the crowd, counting votes, recounting, verifying. Alara stood next to Kale. Their hands clasped so tightly she couldn't feel her fingers. This was it. Everything they'd fought for came down to this moment. Finally, Rowan returned to the platform. His face was ashen. "The vote," he said slowly, "is 2,847 for the council, and 2,941 for the coalition." The crowd erupted into chaos, cheering, shouting, some celebrating, some protesting. They'd won. By less than 100 votes. But they'd won. Alara's knees went weak. Kale caught her, pulled her against his chest, and she felt him shaking too, whether from relief or shock, she couldn't tell. "The people have spoken," Rowan continued, and every word sounded like it was being dragged from him. "Effective immediately. The old council is dissolved. New leadership." He swallowed hard. "Will be established by the coalition." It was over. They'd done it. Changed the world in 3 weeks. The crowd surged forward, wolves wanting to congratulate them, to join the coalition, to be part of this new world they'd promised. Mira reached them first, tears streaming down her scarred face. "You did it," she breathed. "You actually did it." "We did it," Alara corrected, pulling her into a hug. "All of us. Together." More coalition wolves pressed close, celebrating, crying, unable to believe this was real. That outcasts and rogues and cursed ones had actually won. But as the celebration swirled around them, as wolves cheered and the old order crumbled, something shifted. Alara felt at first a tremor beneath her feet. Not an earthquake. Something else. Something that made her silver fire leap in warning. Kale felt it too. His hand tightened on hers, gold light flaring in his eyes. "Do you feel?" The ground split open, not violently, not destructively, but purposefully. Right in the center of the square, the earth parted to reveal stairs leading down into darkness, and from that darkness came light, silver and gold twined together, pulsing with ancient power. The crowd fell silent, backing away from the opening. "What is that?" someone whispered. Alara and Kyle moved toward it, drawn by something they couldn't name. As they reached the edge, a voice echoed up from the depths, not speaking, but felt in their bones. Come. The old moon calls its champions. The first trial is complete, but the true test has only just begun. They looked at each other. We should, Alara started. Together, Kale finished. Hand in hand, they descended into the darkness. The stairs went deep, deeper than should have been possible. And with each step, the silver and gold light grew brighter. When they finally reached the bottom, they found themselves in a vast chamber that couldn't exist beneath the capital, an exact replica of the old moon's shrine. But this one wasn't empty. Dozens of figures stood, waiting, translucent, ethereal, ancient. Alara recognized Selenara and Malachi at the front, but behind them stood others. So many others. Welcome, Selenara said, her voice echoing strangely. You've passed the first test, united the outcasts, proven that change is possible. First test? Alara's stomach dropped. What do you mean first? Did you think winning one vote in one territory would change the world? Malachi's smile was kind but firm. This is just the beginning, young ones, just the first step. The other figures moved forward, and Alara saw they wore different symbols, different marks, representatives from bloodlines she didn't recognize. The wolf territories are the smallest piece. One of them, said a woman with eyes that glowed like emeralds. There are others, other shifters, other beings, all bound by the same old laws, the same old fears. And they're watching, added another, a man whose form seemed to flicker between solid and smoke. Watching what you've started here, waiting to see if it's real, if it's lasting, if it's worth joining, finished a third. Selenara stepped forward, her expression serious. You wanted to change the world, Alara, to build something better. But the world is larger than one wolf territory, larger than you imagined. How much larger? Kale asked, though Alara could hear the dread in his voice. There are 7 shifter races, Malachi said. Wolves are just one. Each has its own territories, its own councils, its own ancient prejudices and power structures. He gestured to the assembled figures. Representatives from each have been watching you, waiting to see if the prophecy was real, if Fury and Flame could truly unite instead of destroy. And now they want to know, Selenara continued. Will you help them too? Will you take this revolution beyond wolf territories? Will you stand for ALL outcasts, not just your own kind? The question hung in the air, massive, impossible, terrifying. They'd just finished one war, and already, another was beginning. Alara started, but her voice failed. You don't have to answer now, one of the figures said gently. Return to your people, build your coalition, strengthen your foundation. But know this. The figure's eyes glowed. Others are coming. Some to join you, some to test you, some to destroy what you're building before it spreads. The old powers don't want change. Another added. They'll fight, they'll scheme, they'll do everything possible to prove you wrong, to show the world that outcasts can't unite, that power corrupts, that the old ways are better. So rest while you can, Malachi said. Celebrate your victory, because the true battle, the one that will determine the fate of every shifter alive, that battle hasn't started yet. Selenara finished. The chamber began to fade, the figures disappearing like smoke, and Alara and Kale found themselves back in the square, standing exactly where they'd been before. The celebration continued around them. No one else seemed to have noticed their absence. No time had passed at all, but everything had changed. Alara looked at Kale and saw her own shock reflected in his eyes. Did that just— Yes, he said quietly. It did. They stood in the center of the cheering crowd, surrounded by wolves celebrating their victory, and felt the weight of what was coming pressing down on them. This wasn't the end. It was barely the beginning. Kale? Alara whispered. Yes, I'm terrified. Good. He pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. That means you understand what we've started. But Alara, he pulled back to look at her. We don't have to do this. We can stop here. Build our coalition in this territory and be content with that. No one would blame us. She wanted to say yes. Wanted to choose safety over destiny. Wanted to just be happy with what they'd won. But she thought about Mira's scars, about her parents' shame, about 7 years of running and the moment she'd finally stood and fought. She thought about every outcast in every territory who was still running, still hiding, still believing they were too broken to be loved. And she knew. No, she said firmly. We don't stop. We keep going. We take this revolution to every territory, every shifter race, every outcast who needs to hear that they're not alone, even knowing what it will cost. Especially knowing. She held his gaze. Because we're not doing this for glory or power or even for ourselves anymore. We're doing it because it's right. Because someone has to. Because we're fury and flame. Kale finished softly. And we don't run anymore. No, Elara agreed. We don't. They kissed, then surrounded by celebration, standing on the precipice of a larger war, two souls who'd found each other in darkness and chosen to burn together. When they pulled apart, Kale rested his forehead against hers. Ready to change the world? He murmured. I don't think I have a choice. There's always a choice. Then I choose this. She smiled, fierce and bright and absolutely unbreakable. I choose us. I choose the outcasts. I choose to keep fighting until every shifter alive knows they deserve to exist exactly as they are. Even if it takes the rest of our lives? Especially then. Somewhere beyond the celebration, beyond the capital, beyond the territories they knew, the old powers stirred. They'd heard what happened here, seen the outcasts unite, watched impossible wolves claim impossible power, and they were afraid, which meant they would fight back. With everything they had, 3 months later, the coalition had grown to over 1,000 wolves. They'd established territory in the neutral zone between 3 major packs, built homes, schools, training grounds, a place where outcasts could come and be safe, be seen, be valued. But it wasn't enough. Every week brought new stories of wolves being cast out in other territories, of bloodlines being hunted, of power being suppressed. The revolution was spreading, but so was the resistance. And then one night, a stranger arrived at their gates. Not a wolf. Something else. Something with scales instead of fur and eyes that glowed like molten copper. A dragon shifter. I need your help, she said simply. My people are dying, being hunted, cast out. Her eyes met Elara's. I heard what you did here, that you united the outcasts, gave them hope. We're still building, Elara started. I know. But they're coming for us now. The old dragon councils. They've heard about your revolution, and they're terrified it will spread to our territories. The woman's voice broke. Please. We need fury and flame. We need warriors who understand what it's like to be cast out, to be hunted, to be told you're too dangerous to exist. Elara looked at Kale, saw the same conflict in his eyes that she felt. They'd just found peace. Just started building something stable. And already, they were being asked to go to war again. But they'd known this was coming. The old moon had warned them. How many dragons? Kale asked quietly. Hundreds cast out. Maybe thousands in hiding. The woman's eyes blazed with desperate hope. But if you help us, if you show us how to unite like you did, we could change everything. Not just for dragons. For all shifters. It won't be easy, Elara warned. Nothing worth doing is. We could fail. Then we fail together. The dragon woman smiled, fierce and broken, and so familiar it hurt. But at least we try. Elara looked at the coalition she'd built. At the outcasts who'd found family. At Kale standing beside her. Steady and strong and absolutely unbreakable. Then she looked back at the dragon shifter. Okay, she said. We'll help. We'll fight. We'll bring the revolution to your territories too, even knowing what it will cost. Elara's smile was sharp. Especially then, because she was Silverblood, because she was flame, because she'd learned that being different was a gift, not a curse, and because somewhere, in territories she'd never seen, outcasts were running, hiding, believing they were too broken to be loved, just like she'd once believed. And if she could show them, if she could prove to them that they deserved better, then every battle would be worth it. Every sacrifice would matter. Every moment of fear and pain and impossible odds would lead to something beautiful. The dragon woman bowed. Thank you. You don't know what this means. We do, Kale interrupted gently. Because we've lived it. And now we'll fight for every shifter who's living it now. As the dragon woman left to gather her people, as the coalition prepared for another war, as the world held its breath waiting to see what would happen next, Alara stood with Kale, looking out over the territory they'd built. No rest for the wicked? She said lightly. Apparently not. He pulled her close. But I wouldn't have it any other way. Liar, you'd love a vacation. With you, always. He pressed a kiss to her temple. But changing the world comes first. How long do you think it will take? To bring this revolution to all 7 shifter races? Years, maybe decades. That's a long time. Yes. His arms tightened around her. But we have time. And we have each other. And we have every outcast who's ever been told they weren't enough. Think we can actually do it? Change everything? I think we already have. He turned her to face him. Look at what we've built, Alara. Look at what we've started. The old powers are terrified because they know deep down, they know that we're right, that their entire system is crumbling, that the outcasts are rising, and we're just getting started. Exactly. His smile was wild and fierce and absolutely beautiful. So let them come, let them fight, let them throw everything they have at us. Because we're fury and flame, because we're unstoppable. They kissed as the sun set over their impossible territory. 2 wolves who'd been told they were too broken to love, too dangerous to exist, too cursed to deserve happiness. 2 souls who'd proven the world wrong. And somewhere in the darkness beyond their borders, in territories they'd never seen, in the hearts of outcasts who didn't know them yet, hope stirred. Whispers spread. Stories were told of the Silver Blood and the Rage King who'd united the broken ones, who'd started a revolution, who'd shown the world that being different didn't make you dangerous. It made you powerful, and the outcasts began to believe, began to hope, began to rise. The war isn't over, it's only just beginning. But this time, the outcasts aren't running. This time, they're fighting back. This time, they have fury and flame to lead them. And the world will never be the same. The end. For now. But is it really the end? Or is this just the beginning of something even bigger? Because Alara and Kale's story, the revolution they started, the world they're building, the enemies gathering in the shadows, that story is far from over. If you want to see what happens next, if you want to witness the dragon territories battle, if you want to watch the old powers make their move, if you want to know whether fury and flame can truly change the world, or if they'll burn out before they finish, then you need to subscribe to Clarissa Romance Collections. Because this journey through pain and power and impossible love, this was just the first chapter. Hit that subscribe button. Smash the notification bell. Leave a comment telling me, would you choose her side? Would you stand with the outcasts? Would you fight for a world where being different means powerful instead of dangerous? Because your voice matters, your choice matters, and just like Alara learned, you deserve to exist exactly as you are. Different, powerful, unbreakable. This is Clarissa Romance Collections, where we tell tales that burn. Stories about souls who refuse to be tamed. About love that defies every rule. About power that won't be suppressed. And Alara's story, Kale's fury, the revolution they've started, that fire is just beginning to spread. So subscribe, stay with us, because the best is yet to come. The outcasts are rising, and the world is about to discover what happens when you give the broken ones a reason to fight back. See you in the next story. Firestarter. Until then, stay fierce. Stay different. Stay unapologetically you. Because that's where real power lives.